My wife slept with her boss. It was a mistake, she wept. So I slept with her best friend Olivia. I won the war and lost my soul. My wife preferred an open marriage. I hope to spend a calm Thursday night with leftover pizza and the Cubs game. Guess who won? Samuel, we should chat. Lauren set down her wine glass with that particular precision. That indicated I was about to get screwed. And not in a pleasant way. She'd been doing that thing where she adjusted her face to be compassionate, but it came across as a funeral director talking payment options. Shoot, I murmured, not glancing away from the television. Rizzo was up to bat, and frankly, watching him strike out looked preferable than whatever Lauren had planned. I've been thinking about us, about our marriage, and what we both require to be truly satisfied. The way she phrased fulfilled sounded like a yoga retreat brochure. I muted the game and turned to face her. Lauren looked excellent at 40, the kind of good that comes from costly gym memberships and whatever she did with her sister Rachel on spa weekends. But there was something odd about her eyes tonight. Something made my gut clench. What kind of thinking? I inquired. She took a deep breath, as if she were going to jump from a height. I believe we should open our marriage. I stared at her. What will you open it to? Jehovah's Witnesses. Samuel, I am serious. We've been together for 14 years. We're comfortable. Perhaps too comfortable. I believe we both deserve to pursue new connections while retaining the ones we have. The words hit me like a slap, but my expression remained neutral. After 14 years in the army, you learn not to react when someone points a weapon at you, even if it is your wife's lips. Other connections I made slowly. Physical and emotional ties do not diminish my love for you. It simply means that we are grown enough to see that one person cannot meet every requirement. Instead of pondering how long she had been practicing this speech, I nodded as if I was contemplating its great insight. You got to this decision all by yourself. A flush spread up her neck. I have been reading about it. There are books and websites. Many couples are doing this now. Lots of couples. I stood up and proceeded to the kitchen, mostly because I needed to move or I'd smash my fist through the wall. Anyone I know? Samuel, do not be like this. Like, what? Confused because my wife just informed me she wants to, other people but keep me around to make mortgage payments. That is not what this is about. I opened the fridge and got a beer, carefully using the bottle opener. Then explain it to me, Lauren. Use smaller words. She followed me into the kitchen, her heels clicking against the tile like a countdown timer. You're being purposely obtuse. This is about growing. Not allowing fear and envy to limit our enjoyment. My potential for happiness. I had a lengthy drink. Right now, my happiness depends on you not sleeping with other men. This is exactly the type of possessive mindset that hinders partnerships. I nearly laughed. Almost possessive. Yes, that's me. Thinking that my wife should only be intimate with me, I am nearly a caveman. Lauren's phone vibrated on the counter. She gazed at it, and her color intensified. Something chilly settled into my chest. Are you expecting someone? I asked. It's only work. But she did not read the message and did not meet my gaze. In the army, we termed this a tell. Everyone carries one. That tiny thing they do while lying. Lauren was caressing her earring, as she was doing now. Work starts at 10:15 p.m. On Thursdays. You know how difficult my work is. I knew. Lauren worked in marketing for a medium-sized corporation in downtown. Her supervisor was a man named Brandon Cole. He was in his late 40s, divorced, and drove an expensive BMW. I'd met him at a few company events, the type of guy who donned costly outfits to conceal the fact that he possessed the personality of wet cardboard. Is Brandon working late too? I asked casually. The earring touching became more intense. I do not know, probably. He's extremely committed. Dedicated? I nodded. That is one word for it. We looked at each other across the kitchen island. The fridge hummed. A dog could be heard barking in the distance. Normal sounds in a normal house, where a normal marriage appeared to be ending. So, how does it work? I eventually asked. Do we have rules and a schedule? Do I get Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Brandon gets the weekend? Brandon? She attempted to appear perplexed, but her hand was nearly bonded to the earring by now. What does Brandon have to do with anything? You tell me. Samuel, you are being paranoid. Am I? Because it appears that you have this all figured out. Speech, logic, and justification. It seems like you've been planning this for a while. Her phone vibrated again. This time, she grabbed it and turned slightly away from me while reading. Important work emergency? I asked. Samuel, I believe you should take some time to process this. Maybe we can chat more tomorrow, once you've had a chance to think clearly. Rationally? As if I were the one being unfair here. Sure, I replied. I will think about it. She smiled, perhaps believing she had won. Good. I knew you'd understand eventually. You are a reasonable man, Samuel. It's one of my favorite things about you. Love, right? She stated it in such a manner that it sounded as if she loved me as much as she loved her favorite coffee shop. Convenient and pleasant, yet readily replaced if better options become available. I'm going to bed, she murmured, caressing my cheek as if we were merely discussing vacation arrangements rather than the nuclear option. Don't stay up too late. I saw her walk away, her phone already in her hand, probably texting Brandon about how great it went, how her sensible husband would think about it sensibly. What I was really thinking about were the credit card statements I had been wanting to go into more closely. Late evenings at the office had become more frequent. I found new underwear in her drawer. Black lace, with tags still attached. Definitely not for my benefit, as our intimate life had recently been as fascinating as a tax lesson. I finished my beer and opened another. Then I got my laptop and began thinking very rationally. By 1 a.m., I'd heard several interesting things, including how Lauren's credit card showed charges at the Marriott downtown on 4 separate afternoons earlier this month. Always the same day she claimed to be in lengthy client meetings, or how Brandon Cole was still married, not divorced, as he had informed everyone at the company parties. His wife's Facebook profile was filled with photos of their idyllic life together. Vacations, anniversary dinners, and family portraits of their 2 children. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark for a long time, listening to Lauren move around upstairs, getting ready for bed, and most likely texting her committed boss about how her rational husband would be so understanding of their mature, open relationship. Lauren didn't realize that I had spent 14 years learning how to organize operations, acquire intelligence, identify targets, and neutralize threats. And right now, my wife and her boyfriend have waged war on everything I've built. It's time to show them what reasonable looks like. Lauren had already left by the time I awoke the following morning. There was no coffee, no message, just the lingering smell of her costly perfume and a guilt-inducing stillness. Her side of the bed looked like she had barely slept. I brewed coffee and sat at the kitchen table, glancing at my phone. Marcus, my work partner, missed 4 calls and was probably wondering why I wasn't in yet. I called in sick, which was not entirely false. I felt terrible to my stomach. Instead of heading to the workplace, I drove to Olivia's apartment. Olivia Knox has been Lauren's best friend since college. She was the type of woman who knew where every body was buried since she had helped excavate half of them. If Lauren was cheating, which my instinct told me she was, Olivia would know. She answered the door wearing yoga leggings and an oversized sweater, with her black hair tied back in a sloppy bun. "Samuel, what are you doing here?" "Hello, Liv. Got a minute?" She stared beyond me as if looking for Lauren's automobile. "Is everything okay?" That is what I am attempting to figure out. She allowed me in, which was intriguing. If she was genuinely dedicated to Lauren, she would have found an excuse. The fact that she did not tell me anything. "Coffee?" she inquired, already moving toward the kitchen. "Sure." Olivia's apartment was typical of a single lady in her late 30s who worked in graphic design. There were many plants, abstract paintings, and furniture that appeared to be pricey but was most likely from Target. She poured 2 drinks and gave me one. "So, what's going on?" she inquired. Olivia's hand froze halfway to her mouth as she said, "Lauren wants an open marriage." Coffee spilled over the rim of her cup. "She's what?" "You heard me, Samuel." She put the cup down and grabbed a paper towel, making a big show of mopping up the spill. "That is between you and Lauren." "Is it?" She looked at me, and I saw something unexpected. Guilt, and perhaps something else. "What do you know, Liv?" "I know nothing." She flinched. I'd never sworn at her before, and I'd always been courteous and friendly at all of our dinner parties and group outings over the years, but being polite and friendly wasn't going to get me anywhere. "She is my best friend, Samuel, and I am her husband. Or I was, until yesterday." Olivia sat across from me, her hands wrapped around her coffee cup as if it were an anchor. "What exactly did she tell you?" "She wants to explore other connections, both physical and emotional, as many couples are doing right now." "God." Olivia rubbed her forehead. She actually followed through with it. "What did you go through with?" "Nothing." I should not have said that. I leaned forwards. "Liv, I need to know what is going on. Is she involved in an affair?" The silence between us was like a wire about to snap. Olivia finally sighed. "She'd been chatting about Brandon for months," she said gently. "It began as merely work-related activities, but it quickly expanded. How knowledgeable he was, how he truly understood her goals, and how he made her feel valued." "How long is the conversation?" "Maybe 7 months. But Samuel, I'm not sure if anything. How long have they been sleeping together?" Another lapse in stillness. "This time, the duration is longer." 3 months. She muttered. "Perhaps 4. The coffee tasted like ash in my mouth. "You've known all along. You knew she was cheating on me, yet you said nothing." "She is my best friend. And what am I?" That knocked her down cold. We stared at each other across the small kitchen table, and I could see her seriously considering it for the first time. What was I to her? Just Lauren's husband, or anything more? She started to say something, then paused and restarted. "You're a good man, Samuel. You deserve better than this, but not good enough for you to warn me." I attempted to talk her out of it. I told her she was being silly, that she was going to lose you, and that Brandon was bad news, but she refused to listen. She said you two had grown apart and that you no longer understood her, and Brandon does. Brandon tells her exactly what she wants to hear. That she's intelligent and lovely, and destined for greater things than being married to a... She paused abruptly. "To what?" Samuel? I didn't mean to what, Liv? She gazed down at her hands. She said you were comfortable and protected, but she wanted more excitement in her life. Comfortable, safe, like if I were an old pair of slippers she was about to discard. So open marriage is simply her method of having it both ways. I responded, I think so. She gets to keep the house, the financial security, the respectability of being married while she has her fun with Brandon. How about Brandon's wife? Olivia's head snapped upward. His what? Brandon is married and has 2 kids. Did Lauren fail to disclose that part? Her face lost its color. No, she claimed he was divorced. He is not. I searched him up last night. Very married. He is still living with his family in their lovely home in Westfield. Oh, God. Lauren is unaware or unconcerned. We sat there for a bit, both contemplating the new knowledge. Finally, Olivia spoke. What are you planning to do? A good question. What was I planning to do? I could approach Lauren, demand she stop it, and try to work things out. I could pay a lawyer, file for divorce, and divide everything in the middle like a responsible adult. Or, I could try something different entirely. I promised to give her exactly what she asked for. What do you mean? I rose up and left my coffee unfinished. She wants an open marriage. Fine. But it works both ways. Samuel, please wait. Thank you for the coffee, Liv. Thank you for being honest with me. Where are you going? I hesitated at the door and looked back at her. She was still sitting at the table, looking concerned, guilty, and something else I couldn't place. I'm going to look at some additional links, I said, physical and emotional ones. The expression on her face told me she knew precisely what I meant. I drove home and spent the remainder of the day planning. Lauren did not arrive home until after 8:45, claiming she had been in meetings all day. She appeared astonished that I wasn't upset, and that I was cordial and talkative during dinner. As we cleaned up the dishes, I informed her that I had been thinking about what you mentioned about open marriage. She almost dropped the plate she was carrying. Have you? Yeah. And I think you're correct. Maybe we've become too comfy. Perhaps we both need to consider different choices. Really? Her voice was full of optimism, and it cut deep into my chest. She was not hoping I would accept her affair. She hoped I would make it easier for her to rationalize it. Really? I said. In fact, I was thinking about asking Olivia out. The plate dropped out of her hands and shattered on the floor. Olivia? Her voice squeaked. Why not? She's pretty, clever, and available, plus she already understands our arrangement, so there will be no discomfort. Lauren stared at the broken shards of ceramic scattered across the kitchen floor, as if her brain was attempting to process something that did not make sense. But Olivia is my best friend, while Brandon is your employer. We seem to be blending business and pleasure. How did you? She caught herself too late. I am aware of Brandon, I smiled, it was a lucky guess. She knelt down and began picking up pieces of the dish, her hands shaking slightly. Samuel, I do not think Olivia is the best decision. Why not? I assumed this was about making connections with others who understood us. Olivia understands me. She believes I am a fine man who deserves better. She mentioned it, among other things. Lauren cut her finger on a piece of porcelain. A vivid red drop of blood landed on the white tile, perfectly spherical. Shit, she mumbled, getting up and dipping her finger into the frigid water. I gave her a paper towel. Be careful. Sometimes the things that appear harmless are the ones that cut the deepest. She looked at me, actually looked at me, and I felt dread in her eyes for the first time since the beginning of this whole event. Good. She was beginning to realize that her rational spouse might not be as reasonable as she assumed. Lauren left early the next morning, but this time I was prepared for her. I installed a monitoring app on her phone weeks ago, not because I didn't trust her, but because she had a tendency of misplacing it and requesting me to call it. It's amazing how valuable seemingly simple programs can be. According to the GPS, she was not in her office. She was at the Marriott downtown, where she'd been billing lunches for the previous 4 months. I phoned Olivia. Samuel, is everything all right? It depends on how you define, okay. Do you want to get some lunch? A pause. I do not think that is a good idea. Why not? I thought we were pals. We are, but Lauren would not like it. Another pause. This time, the duration is longer. It's complicated. It does not need to be. Meet me at Romano's in 45 minutes. Samuel, 45 minutes Liv. It was just a lunch with friends. When I arrived, she was already sitting in a corner booth, fidgeting with her napkin. She'd changed her attire since yesterday, wearing a dress instead of yoga pants, and her hair was down rather than pushed back. She had put on cosmetics. Interesting. You look nice, I replied, settling onto the seat across from her. Thank you. She refused to meet my gaze. Samuel, you were honest with me yesterday. I appreciate it. I should have said nothing about Lauren. Why not? Someone should be honest in this scenario. The waitress approached, and we ordered Italian food and red wine, the type of dinner you have when you're attempting to seduce or being seduced. Not that I was planning anything. Not precisely. Where is she now? Olivia inquired after the waitress gone. If I had to guess, I would say Marriott downtown, room 518. Olivia's face became pallid. How do you know this? I know a lot of things, like how Brandon's wife believes he's in Chicago for work this week, or how Lauren has been using our joint credit card to pay for their little love vacations. Samuel, you are terrifying me. Good, somebody should be terrified. It's definitely not going to be me anymore. The wine has arrived. I poured for both of us, noting that Olivia's hand shook slightly as she lifted up her glass. What do you want from me? She inquired. I want you to pick a side. It is not that straightforward. Sure, it is. You can continue to cover for Lauren as she destroys our marriage and lies to everyone around her, or you can help me show her what it's like to be deceived by someone she trusts. Olivia drank a huge drink of wine. Do you want me to spy on her? I want you to be my friend, not her accomplice. That is not fair. Neither is what she's doing with me. We ate in relative stillness, with tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Finally, Olivia spoke. What did you mean when you mentioned yesterday that you were looking into additional connections? Exactly what Lauren meant. Maybe it's time I quit feeling so comfortable and safe with myself. I met her gaze across the table. Wouldn't that be terrible? She looked away, but not before I noticed a flash in her expression. Interested, guilty, or both? I could never do that to Lauren, despite everything she has done to me. It is different. How? Because you are married to her. And she is sleeping with someone else. Marriage doesn't seem to be as important to her as it once was. Olivia drank her wine and promptly poured another glass. This is ridiculous. Is it, or is it simply honest? Samuel, I cannot. Can't what? You cannot acknowledge that you have considered it. I can't believe you've been drawn to me for years but have avoided me because I'm Lauren's husband. Her face turned crimson. That is not. It's okay, Liv. I've considered that, too. That wasn't fully correct, but it wasn't completely false either. Olivia was gorgeous, educated, and hilarious when she wasn't enabling Lauren. And right now, she was staring at me as if I had just given her something she'd wanted for a long time but never imagined she could have. Olivia murmured quietly, she is going to hate me. She already hates you. She just doesn't realize it yet. What do you mean? I brought out my phone and showed her the text messages I had intercepted. Lauren complained to Brandon about Olivia's clinginess and jealousy, how Olivia was becoming suspicious and could cause difficulties, and how they might need to cut her out of the picture. Olivia read them again, her face turning darker with each word. She stated I was pathetic in a whisper. She said a number of things, none of which were really polite. Olivia set down the phone as if it were radioactive. When did she send them? Last week, just after you tried to persuade her out of the open marriage concept. Did she tell Brandon about that? She tells Brandon everything, even how monotonous and predictable her husband is, and how she can't wait to be rid of him. That final thing was slightly exaggerated, but not significantly. Lauren had made it clear that I was an impediment to her happiness, not a partner in it. Olivia remained silent for a long time, staring at her wine glass as if it contained answers to questions she did not want to ask. What do you want me to do? She inquired finally. Have dinner with me tomorrow night somewhere public. Somewhere Lauren's friends will see us. That's it? That's a start. She looked up at me, and I saw something unexpected. Lauren elicits more than simply attraction, guilt, and rage. I noticed a possibility. Okay, she replied gently. Okay, I'll have dinner with you tomorrow night. I stretched across the table to take her hand. Her skin felt soft and warm, and she did not pull away. Thank you, I replied. Don't thank me yet, I might change my mind. You won't. How do you know? Because you're tired of being Lauren's backup plan, and because you deserve better than watching from the sidelines while she destroys everything good in her life. Olivia squeezed my hand. Including you. Especially me. We finished our lunch, and I walked her to her car. Before she entered, she turned and gazed at me with an expression that I couldn't decipher. Samuel, what if there is an error? Then we'll do it together. She grinned then, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her since the whole ordeal began. Pick me up at 7:30, she requested. I watched her drive away, already deciding where to take her. Lauren would find out about it within hours. My phone vibrated. Lauren sent a text. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. I texted back. No problem, I have plans anyway. She did not answer, which was acceptable. Tomorrow, she'd have a lot to say. I drove home and spent the remainder of the afternoon making reservations and phone calls. If Lauren wanted an open marriage, she was going to get it. She just wasn't going to enjoy her end of the bargain. I got Olivia up promptly at 7:30 a.m., dressed in my nicest suit and bearing flowers, white lilies, rather of roses, which would be too conspicuous. Elegant, refined, the type of gesture that indicated this was more than simply a supper with friends. Olivia answered the door wearing a black dress that hugged her curves in all the right places. She had done something different with her hair, and her makeup was perfect. She looked stunning, but more importantly, she resembled a woman on a date. You clean up nice, I replied, handing her the flowers. Thank you, so do you. She let me in while she was putting the lilies in water, and I noticed she had cleaned her flat. Candles were lighted, Quiet music was playing, and there was an open bottle of wine on the counter. "Were you planning on inviting me up after dinner?" I requested an answer. She reddened. "I figured maybe if everything went good." "They will." I'd arranged a reservation at Chat Laurent, the most expensive French restaurant in town. The kind of restaurant where you had to make reservations weeks in advance, where the servers whispered quietly, where the wine list cost more than most people's vehicle payments. Lauren had always wanted to go somewhere like this, but I had told her it was too expensive. The hostess put us at a great table with a view of the entire dining room, which was ideal for being noticed. Olivia exclaimed, admiring the crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths. "I've never been any place as fancy." "You should have been. A woman like you deserves to be treated well." She smiled, but it was a sad smile. Lauren always remarked that sophisticated restaurants were a waste of money on me since I couldn't tell excellent food from bad. Lauren speaks a lot of stuff. The majority of them are. The sommelier presented the wine list. I ordered a bottle of Chateau Margaux for more than Lauren spends on shoes in a month. When it arrived, I made a show of tasting it, swirling it in the glass and nodding in agreement as if I knew what I was doing. "To new beginnings," I raised my glass. Olivia echoed, "To new beginnings." We were halfway through the appetizer course when I noticed them. Isabella Torres and her husband Daniel are sitting 3 tables away. Isabella worked with Lauren, and she had a mouth as big as the Grand Canyon. "Perfect," I said quietly, "don't look now, but Isabella Torres is here." Olivia started turning her head. I said, "Don't look." "Sorry, what do we do?" "We had dinner." "We laugh." "We look like we're having a great time, are we?" I looked at her across the table, at the way the candlelight reflected on her face, at how she looked at me as if I were the most interesting man in the world. "Yes," I said. "I believe we are." And, surprisingly, it was correct. Olivia was enjoyable company when she wasn't concerned about Lauren's approval. She was funny, smart, and actually listened to me instead of checking her phone every 6 minutes. "Tell me something," I asked as we waited for the main course. "Why did you stay friends with Lauren all these years?" Olivia considered the question as she twirled the stem of her wine glass between her fingers. "Loyalty, I suppose, and fear." "What exactly are you afraid of?" "Of being alone. Lauren was my college roommate, my maid of honor in my first wedding, and my shoulder to cry on when everything fell apart. She was my constant. Even when she was being awful, she was present. She was not there for you. She was ready for whatever you could do for her. I know that now." "Do you?" Olivia looked up at me. "What do you mean?" "So, are you here because you want to be, or because you want to get back at Lauren?" The question hung between us, like smoke. Finally, Olivia reached across the table to take my hand. "Both," she admitted, "but mostly because I want to be with you." Good response. The main course has arrived. I'll have duck, and she'll have salmon. We ate, talked, and laughed, and I forgot why I was here. I forgot about Lauren and Brandon and revenge, and instead enjoyed the company of a lovely woman who seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. "Samuel." Olivia's voice brought me back into reality. "Yeah. Isabella Torres is taking pictures on her phone." I cast a glance over. Isabella was, indeed, pretending to take selfies with her husband while photographing the table. "Perfect," I said. "Should I worry about Isabella?" "No. What about Lauren's reaction when she sees the pictures?" "Maybe." Olivia tightened her grip on my hand. "What if she becomes violent?" "Lauren? She has never hit anything harder than a tennis ball in her life. She might start. Later." "I am not afraid of my wife, Liv." "Perhaps you should be." I looked at her with curiosity. "What do you mean?" "She has been acting differently lately. Angrier, more intense, as if she's capable of doing things I never expected her to do, such as having an affair with a married man, lying to everyone she cares about, and destroying her marriage for a fantasy. Those are non-violent crimes." "No, but they show she isn't who I thought she was. And if I was mistaken about that, what else could I be wrong about?" That was a good point. I had been thinking about Lauren as the woman I had married 14 years ago. Ambitious, yet fundamentally decent. Selfish but not cruel. But people change. And perhaps the woman who could lie to my face about wanting an open marriage while already cheating was capable of more than I had previously believed. "We'll deal with whatever comes," I said. Together, we finished dinner, and I paid the bill, making sure Isabella saw the total on the receipt. Then I helped Olivia with her coat, my hand resting on her shoulder for longer than necessary. "Your place or mine?" I inquired as we approached the car. "Mine," she said without hesitation. "If we're doing this, I want to do it correctly." We drove back to her apartment in peaceful silence, her hand resting on my thigh. When we arrived, she poured more wine, turned on soft music, and sat beside me on the couch. "I haven't done this in a while," she said quietly. "Neither have I. I mean, I have not been with a married man. I'm not truly married anymore, that is not at all relevant." She gave me a long look before leaning in and kissing me. It was soft at first, tentative, but deepened as I drew her closer. She tasted like wine and possibility. Are you sure about this? I asked against her lips. Are you? Yes. Then stop talking. We made love on her couch, then in her bedroom, and finally in the shower. It was desperate and passionate, and nothing like the mechanical routine Lauren and I had fallen into over the past year. Olivia was responsive, enthusiastic, present in a way Lauren hadn't been in months. Afterward, we lay tangled in her sheets, her head on my chest, my fingers running through her hair. What happens now? She asked. Now Lauren finds out what betrayal feels like. I meant with us. I tilted her chin up so I could see her face. What do you want to happen with us? I want to see where this goes without Lauren's permission or approval. Good, because I don't think we're going to get either. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Lauren sent a text. Where are you? I showed it to Olivia. Should I answer? What would you normally do? Tell her I'm at Marcus's watching the game. Then do that. I texted back. At Marcus's. Be home late. Another buzz. How late? Very late, don't wait up. No response. I set the phone aside and pulled Olivia closer. She's going to find out, she said. I'm counting on it. And then the real fun begins. We fell asleep in each other's arms. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night without waking up wondering what Lauren was really doing when she claimed to be working late. I woke up to 19 missed calls and 46 text messages. Isabella Torres worked fast. I got home at 6:45 the morning to find Lauren sitting at the kitchen table in her robe, her laptop open, her phone beside her, and an expression on her face that could have melted steel. Good morning, I said cheerfully, heading for the coffee maker. Sit down. Let me just. Sit down. I sat. Lauren turned her laptop around so I could see the screen. It was Isabella Torres's Facebook page, and there were at least a dozen photos of me and Olivia at Chat Laurent, holding hands, laughing, looking very much like a couple on a romantic date. Explain this. Lauren said it in a voice that could have cut glass. Dinner. Dinner? That's right. You said you wanted an open marriage. I'm opening it with my best friend. Ex-best friend, from what I hear. Didn't you tell Brandon she was getting pathetic and clingy? Lauren's face went white. How did you know about that? I know a lot of things, Lauren, like how you've been your married boss for 4 months while lying to my face about wanting to work on our marriage. That is not. It's not what? True? I have credit card statements, hotel receipts, and about 52 text messages that say otherwise. Lauren stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You've been spying on me? I've been paying attention. There's a difference. You had no right. I had no right? I laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. I had no right to notice that my wife was cheating on me, that she was using our money to pay for hotel rooms where she could, another woman's husband. Samuel, please. Please what? Please pretend this isn't happening. Please be understanding about your need to explore other connections. Please keep being your safe, comfortable backup plan while you have your midlife crisis. Lauren's hands were shaking. It's not like that. Then what is it like? It's complicated. No, it's not. It's simple. You wanted to have your cake and eat it too. You wanted to keep me around for financial security and respectability while you played house with Brandon. The only thing you didn't count on was me doing the same thing. But not with Olivia. Why not? She's beautiful, intelligent, available, and unlike some people, she doesn't lie about her intentions. She is my best friend. Was past tense. And whose fault is that? Lauren stood up abruptly, knocking over her coffee cup. The hot liquid spread across the table and dripped onto the floor. This is different, she said. How? Because I love Brandon. The words hung in the air like a bomb that hadn't quite exploded yet. Lauren's hand flew to her mouth like she could take them back, but it was too late. You love him, I repeated slowly. Samuel, I didn't mean you love him. You're a married boss with 2 kids and a wife who thinks he's in Chicago on business. His marriage is complicated. His marriage is fine. I checked. His wife's Facebook page is full of happy family photos from last weekend, but I'm sure he told you they were separated, right? Just waiting for the right time to file papers. Lauren's face crumpled. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You fell for the oldest line in the cheater's handbook. Let me guess, they don't understand each other anymore. They're staying together for the kids. He's never felt this way about anyone before. Stop it. Which one was it, Lauren? All of them. Stop it. And you believed him. You actually believed that a man who would cheat on his wife wouldn't lie to his mistress. Lauren was crying now. Mascara running down her cheeks in black streams. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. For the first time in months, someone in this house is being honest. I never meant for this to happen, but it did happen. And now you get to live with the consequences. What consequences? I stood up and walked to the sink, stepping over the spilled coffee. Well, for starters, Olivia and I are going to keep seeing each other publicly, regularly, with great enthusiasm. You can't do that. Watch me. Samuel, please, we can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can. What? Pretend this never happened? Pretend you didn't spend 4 months lying to my face? Pretend you didn't just tell me you love another man? I was angry. I didn't mean it. Yes, you did. And you know what? It's fine because I don't love you anymore either. That knocked her down cold. She stared at me with her mouth open, coffee stains on her white robe, her perfect hair a mess from running her hands through it. You don't mean that, she whispered. I do. I love the woman I married 14 years ago, but that woman wouldn't have done this. That woman had integrity, honor, basic human decency. I'm still that woman. No, you're not. You're someone who lies and cheats and manipulates people to get what she wants. You're someone who would destroy a marriage and break up a family for a fantasy. You're someone I don't recognize anymore. Lauren sank back into her chair like a deflated balloon. What do you want from me? Nothing. I don't want anything from you anymore. So, what happens now? Now you get exactly what you asked for. An open marriage. I'll see Olivia whenever I want, wherever I want, however I want. And you can keep seeing Brandon until his wife finds out and destroys his life the same way you destroyed ours. His wife doesn't know. She will. These things always come out eventually, and when they do, Brandon's going to throw you under the bus so fast it'll make your head spin, because that's what cowards do when they get caught. Lauren was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. Samuel, please, I'm sorry, I'll end it with Brandon, we can start over. It's too late for that. It's not, we can fix this. No, we can't, because I don't trust you anymore and I don't love you anymore. And most importantly, I don't want to fix this anymore. I started to leave the kitchen, then turned back. Oh, and Lauren, you might want to find a new best friend. Olivia's busy now. I left her there crying over spilled coffee and went upstairs to shower. I had a date to get ready for. Olivia and I were going to brunch. By the time I came downstairs, Lauren was gone. Her car wasn't in the driveway, and she'd left her wedding ring on the kitchen counter next to a note that said simply, I'm sorry, too little, too late. I picked up the ring, a simple platinum band we'd chosen together when we were young and stupid, and thought love conquered all. It felt heavier than I remembered. I dropped it in the junk drawer next to the takeout menus and dead batteries. My telephone rang. Olivia, how did it go? She asked. About as well as expected. She knows. How angry is she? Scale of 1 to 10? About a 15. Samuel, maybe we should slow down, give her time to adjust. No. No slowing down. No adjusting. No mercy. She made her choice, and now she gets to live with it. A pause. You sound different. I feel different. Good. Different or scary different? I thought about that. Both. Another pause. Are you okay? I'm perfect. Pick you up in 45 minutes for brunch, Samuel. 45 minutes. Liv, wear something that'll make Isabella Torres's head explode when she posts the pictures. I hung up before she could argue. The next few weeks fell into a pattern. Olivia and I went out 3 or 4 times a week. Dinners, movies, art galleries, anywhere we'd be seen by Lauren's social circle. I sent flowers to her office with cards that said things like, thinking of you and can't wait to see you tonight. I picked her up for lunch dates in front of her apartment building where Lauren's other friends lived. Lauren, meanwhile, was falling apart. She'd moved in with her sister, Rachel, temporarily, claiming she needed space to think, but the truth was, Brandon had dumped her the day after our kitchen confrontation. Apparently, when faced with the possibility of his wife finding out, he'd chosen his comfortable suburban life over his exciting affair. What a shock. Lauren tried calling me dozens of times, but I didn't answer. She sent long, rambling emails about how sorry she was, how she'd made a mistake, how she wanted to come home and work things out. I deleted them without reading past the first paragraph. She showed up at my office one afternoon crying and begging me to talk to her. I had security escort her out. She cornered Olivia at the grocery store, screaming about betrayal and friendship and how could she do this. Olivia called me in tears, and I drove over to comfort her. We ended up making love on her kitchen counter, and I made sure to leave my car in her driveway overnight so the neighbors would see. The whole thing was working exactly as I'd planned. Lauren's perfect life was crumbling, her social circle was choosing sides, and she was learning what it felt like to be the one left behind. But it wasn't enough. Not even close. 4 weeks after our kitchen confrontation, I was having dinner with Marcus when he brought up something interesting. You know your wife's been calling my Natalie, right? He said, cutting into his steak. Has she crying about how you've changed, how you're being vindictive, how she just wants to work things out? And what did Natalie tell her? That she should have thought about that before she started screwing her boss. I smiled. I like your wife. She likes you, too, always said Lauren didn't deserve you. Smart woman. Marcus took a drink of his beer and looked at me seriously. Samuel, I got to ask, what's your endgame here? What do you mean? I mean you're destroying your wife's life piece by piece, and everyone can see it. At some point, people are going to start thinking you're the bad guy. Let them think whatever they want. Come on, man, this isn't like you. Maybe the old me, but the old me was a sucker who trusted his wife and got screwed for it. So what's the new you planning to do? I leaned back in my chair and smiled. The new me is just getting started. That's what I was afraid of. Marcus was right to be afraid, because what I hadn't told him, what I hadn't told anyone, was that I'd been busy during those 4 weeks. Very busy. I'd hired a private investigator to dig into Brandon's life. Turns out Lauren wasn't his first affair. There had been at least 4 others over the past 6 years. All employees, all women he'd promised to leave his wife for. I'd also done some digging into Lauren's finances. She'd been skimming money from our joint accounts for months, presumably to fund her affair. Small amounts, but it added up to several thousand, and I'd been documenting everything. Every lie, every betrayal, every piece of evidence that showed Lauren had been planning to leave me long before she asked for an open marriage. But most importantly, I'd been planning the final phase of my revenge. The one that would destroy not just Lauren's marriage, but her career, her reputation, and her future. The one that would show her exactly what happened when you declared war on someone who'd spent 14 years learning how to fight. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We need to talk, Brandon." I showed it to Marcus. Looks like phase 2 is about to begin. Phase 2. The part where Brandon realizes he's made a very big mistake. I texted back, "Romanos, 45 minutes. Come alone." "Samuel," Marcus said quietly, "whatever you're planning, maybe you should think about it first." I have thought about it for 4 weeks. And I finished my beer and stood up. And some people need to learn that actions have consequences. What if those people include you? I looked at my oldest friend, this man who'd stood by me through deployments and divorce proceedings and every other crisis in my adult life. Then I guess we'll find out what I'm really made of. I left him sitting there and drove to Romanos, where Brandon Cole was about to discover that threatening a man's wife was one thing. Threatening a man who had nothing left to lose was something else entirely. Brandon was already there when I arrived, sitting in the same corner booth where I'd first recruited Olivia to my cause. He looked like hell. Unshaven, wrinkled shirt, the kind of desperate exhaustion that comes from 4 weeks of looking over your shoulder. "Samuel," he said as I sat down, "thanks for meeting me." "What do you want, Brandon?" "I want this to stop." "This?" "The games, the revenge, the way you're destroying Lauren just to get back at me." I nearly laughed. "You think this is about you? Isn't it, Brandon? You're not important enough for me to waste this much energy on. This is about my wife lying to me, cheating on me, and then having the balls to ask for an open marriage to cover it up. She loves you, you know." "No, she doesn't. She told me she loves you. Right before you dumped her to save your own ass." Brandon flinched. "That's not what happened." "Sure it is. The minute things got complicated, you ran back to your wife and kids and left Lauren holding the bag, because that's what cowards do." "I'm not a coward." "You're cheating on your wife with your employee while lying to both of them about your intentions. What would you call it?" Brandon was quiet for a moment, staring at his hands. "I never meant for it to go this far. But it did. And now Lauren's life is ruined. Your marriage is hanging by a thread, and I'm just getting started." His head snapped up. "What do you mean?" I pulled out my phone and opened a photo album. "I mean, I've been busy, Brandon. Very busy." I showed him the first picture, him and Lauren entering the Marriott 4 weeks ago. Then another of them in his BMW outside a different hotel. Then another of them having lunch at a restaurant across town. "So," he said, but his voice was shaky. "So these are just the warm-up." I swiped to the next photo. Brandon entering an apartment building downtown. "This is where Vanessa Knox lives. Your previous affair before Lauren." Brandon went pale. "And this," I swiped again, "is where Rebecca Donovan lives. The one before Vanessa." "How did you?" "And this is where Gabriella Callahan lives. The one before Rebecca." Brandon was sweating now. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand that you picked the wrong man to, with." "Samuel, please." "Please what?" "Please don't show these to your wife. Please don't send them to your boss. Please don't post them on social media for all your friends and family to see." "You wouldn't." I leaned forwards. "Try me." We stared at each other across the table. Brandon was breathing hard, his hands shaking slightly. He was finally beginning to understand the position he was in. "What do you want from me?" he asked quietly. "I want you to disappear, quit your job, move to another city, start over somewhere else, and I want you to leave Lauren alone." "I can't just quit my job." "Sure you can, people do it all the time, unless you'd prefer I make the decision for you by sending these photos to HR. They'd fire me. At minimum, they might also press charges for harassment, depending on how many of these women were willing to testify that you abused your position of authority." Brandon put his head in his hands. "Jesus Christ. He's not going to help you with this one. My kids. You should have thought about them before you started cheating on their mother." "Samuel, please. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't destroy my family." "Your family?" I laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. "You destroyed your family the minute you decided to stick your dick in your employees. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it." "What about Lauren? If you expose me, you expose her, too." "Lauren's already exposed. Her life is already ruined. The question is whether yours joins it. Brandon was crying now, actual tears running down his cheeks. This is insane. This is justice. No, this is revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing. I stood up to leave, then turned back. You have 72 hours to decide, Brandon. Disappear voluntarily, or I'll make you disappear. Your choice. And if I choose to fight? Then you'll lose, because I have nothing left to lose and you have everything that makes me dangerous and you vulnerable. I left him there crying into his beer and drove home to my empty house. Lauren's things were still there. Her clothes in the closet, her books on the shelves, her pictures on the walls, like a museum exhibit of a life that used to exist. I poured myself a scotch and sat in my living room, thinking about what came next. Brandon would probably take the deal. He was too much of a coward to fight. He'd quit his job, maybe move back to wherever he came from, start over with a new identity and a new set of lies. Lauren would be left with nothing. No husband, no lover, no job prospects, no friends. She'd have to move back in with her mother or find some other family member willing to take in a disgraced adulteress. It should have felt satisfying. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt empty. My telephone rang. Olivia. Hey, I said. Hey, yourself. How did it go with Brandon? He's going to disappear. Good. What about Lauren? What about her? Samuel, she's been calling me. She sounds broken. She should be. She's talking about suicide. That caught my interest. What? She called me crying, saying her life was over, that she had nothing left to live for. She sounded serious. Samuel. I was quiet for a moment, processing this. She's being dramatic. What if she's not? Then that's her choice. Samuel. What do you want me to say? Liv? That I'm sorry? That I'll take her back? That I'll pretend none of this happened? I want you to be the man I fell in love with. This is the man you fell in love with. No, it's not. The man I fell in love with was kind and decent and wouldn't drive someone to suicide for revenge. The man you fell in love with was a sucker who let his wife walk all over him. Maybe, but he was also a good man. I finished my scotch and poured another one. Good men finish last. Liv, do they? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've already finished last. You've got your revenge, but you've lost your soul in the process. My soul was the first casualty in this war. It does not need to be. Yes, it does, because if I stop now, if I show mercy, then Lauren wins. She gets to play the victim, the poor wronged wife whose husband went crazy and destroyed her life. She gets sympathy and support and a fresh start. And what do you get? I get justice. No, Samuel. You get to be alone with your anger for the rest of your life. She hung up. I sat there in the dark drinking scotch and thinking about what she'd said, about justice and revenge and the difference between them. About the man I used to be and the man I'd become. About Lauren alone somewhere thinking about ending her life. My phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. It's over. I'm sorry for everything. Tell Olivia I'm sorry, too. J. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I called 911. 911, what's your emergency? I need a welfare check on my wife. I think she might be planning to hurt herself. Because whatever else Lauren had done, whatever lies she'd told or hearts she'd broken, she didn't deserve to die for it. And maybe, just maybe, there was still a piece of the good man left inside me after all. The police found Lauren at the Marriott downtown, the same hotel where she'd been meeting Brandon. She was sitting on the bed in room 518 with an empty bottle of sleeping pills and a half-finished bottle of wine, but she was alive. Groggy, incoherent, but alive. They pumped her stomach at the hospital and kept her for 96 hours on psychiatric hold. I didn't visit, Olivia did. She wants to see you, she told me over coffee 4 days later. I'm sure she does. Samuel, she almost died. But she didn't, because you called 911. Because I'm not a monster. Aren't you? I looked at her across the table. Olivia looked tired, older somehow. The past month had aged both of us. What do you want me to say, Liv? I want you to say you're done, that this is over, that you're not going to keep torturing her. I never tortured anyone, I just stopped being a victim. You destroyed her life. She destroyed her own life. I just made sure everyone could see it. Olivia was quiet for a long time, staring into her coffee cup like it held answers to questions she didn't want to ask. What happens to us? She said finally. What do you mean? I mean, where do we go from here? Do we keep dating? Do we move in together? Do we pretend this all started organically instead of as part of your revenge plan? It was a fair question, and I didn't have a good answer. I don't know, I said honestly. That's what I thought. She stood up to leave. Liv, wait. For what? For you to figure out whether you actually care about me or if I'm just another weapon in your war against Lauren. It's not like that, isn't it? Tell me honestly, Samuel. If Lauren hadn't cheated, would you have ever looked at me twice? I opened my mouth to lie, then closed it again, because she deserved better than that. I don't know, I said again. At least you're honest. She picked up her purse. Lauren's getting out tomorrow. She's moving back to Ohio to live with her mother. She wanted me to tell you she's sorry and that she hopes someday you can forgive her. And what did you tell her? I told her forgiveness isn't something you can ask for. It's something you have to earn. Smart woman. Smart enough to know when I'm being used. She walked away, leaving me alone with my coffee and my thoughts, and the hollow feeling that maybe I'd won the battle but lost something more important in the process. I drove home to my empty house and found Brandon's resignation letter in my email. He was moving to Portland, starting over, trying to rebuild his marriage. His wife had agreed to counseling. Apparently, some people get second chances. I deleted the email and poured myself a drink. The house was quiet, too quiet. I'd gotten used to the sounds of another person living here, the shower running in the morning, the TV on in the background, the little domestic noises that make a house feel like a home. Now it just felt like a museum. A monument to a marriage that had died, and a man who'd killed it in the name of justice. My telephone rang. Marcus. How you holding up? He asked. I'm fine. Natalie saw Olivia at the grocery store. She said you two broke up. We were never really together. And Lauren's moving back to Ohio. Good for her. Samuel, you won. You got your revenge. Lauren's life is ruined. Brandon's gone. You've proven your point. So why do you sound like you lost? It was a good question. Why did I feel like I'd lost? Because maybe I did, I said. What do you mean? I mean maybe Olivia was right. Maybe I got my justice but lost my soul in the process. So what are you going to do about it? I do not know. What do you do when you've burned down everything you used to care about? You build something new. With what? I've got no wife, no girlfriend, no family. I've alienated half my friends and turned myself into the kind of man who drives people to suicide attempts. You've also got a clean slate. No more lies, no more betrayal, no more wondering if the person you're with really loves you or is just using you. And no one to share it with. That's temporary. You're a good man, Samuel. You just forgot for a while. Am I a good man? You called 911 when Lauren tried to kill herself. A bad man would have let her die. A good man wouldn't have driven her to it in the first place. A good man wouldn't have cheated on his wife either. But Lauren did that all by herself. I finished my drink and looked around my empty living room. So what now? Now you figure out who you want to be going forward. The victim who got cheated on, or the survivor who learned from it. And if I choose survivor? Then you stop punishing yourself for fighting back and start building a life worth living. After Marcus hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time, thinking about choices and consequences and the difference between justice and revenge. About the man I used to be, and the man I'd become, and the man I might still be able to be. Finally, I picked up my phone and started typing. Olivia, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I owe you an apology. You were right about everything. I used you. I lost myself, and I became someone I don't recognize. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that what we had wasn't all fake. You're an amazing woman, and you deserve better than what I gave you. I hope you find it. Samuel. I hit send before I could change my mind. Then I typed another message. Lauren, I heard you're moving to Ohio. I wanted you to know that I don't forgive you for what you did, but I don't wish you any more harm either. I hope you get the help you need and find a way to be happy. We both deserve that much. Samuel. I sent that one, too. Then I went upstairs and started packing Lauren's things. She'd need them in Ohio. And it was time to let go of the museum and start building something new. Something that looked like a future instead of a monument to the past. Outside, it started to rain. But for the first time in months, it didn't feel like the end of the world. It felt like a beginning. 4 months later, I got a letter from Lauren. She was in therapy, working as a waitress, living with her mother, and trying to figure out who she was without the lies and the affairs and the drama. She thanked me for calling 911, apologized again for everything, and said she hoped someday we could both find peace. I wrote back. Not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. We'd both made mistakes, we'd both lost ourselves for a while, but we were both still here, still breathing, still capable of becoming better people than we'd been. A month after that, I ran into Olivia at the grocery store. She looked good, healthy, happy, like she'd found her footing again. How are you? She asked. Better, I said. You the same. I'm glad. We talked for a few minutes about safe things. Work, weather, mutual friends. Then, as we were saying goodbye, she touched my arm. Samuel, for what it's worth, I think you're a good man who did some bad things, but I also think you learned from them. I hope so. I understand. So take care of yourself. You, too. I watched her walk away. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I didn't feel the urge to chase after her or call her back or try to fix something that was already broken. I just felt grateful that she'd been part of my story, even if she wasn't going to be part of my ending. Because this wasn't really an ending at all. It was just the place where I stopped being the man who'd been betrayed and started being the man who'd survived it. And that man had a lot of living left to do. My son-in-law poisoned my daughter's insulin like he did his first wife, but he forgot I spent 29 years hunting criminals. I am constantly blacking out at work, Dad. No one knows why, including the physicians. On that Tuesday morning, my daughter called me, her voice quivering. I was repairing a 1969 Mustang in my garage. For some reason, I put down my wrench and snatched my phone from Emily's lips the second I picked them up. I inquired, "What do you mean passing out?" as I walked toward my pickup. "How many times?" I inquired. 4 times this week. I just passed out in the middle of the pharmacy yesterday. Dad, I'm nervous. Despite taking my insulin exactly as directed, my blood sugar levels keep decreasing. I work as a pharmacist. Everything is making sense, even though I know what I'm doing. The driveway was already being retracted by me. Though Emily's downtown Denver home was 50 minutes away, I could reach her in 35. "Did you inform Ethan?" A halt followed. A far too lengthy silence. He thinks I'm hyperventilating. His words trail off with a pause before he finally says, "I'm probably just stressed about the new promotion." I had mastered the art of reading silences better than most people read words after 29 years of investigating financial crimes for the IRS. The stillness conveyed all the information I required. There was a major problem. Michael Donovan here. At 64 years of age, I have spent the better part of 3 decades tracking down financial traces, exposing fraud, and finally locking up white-collar offenders. For financial gain, I have witnessed many atrocities, including adultery, child theft from parents, and the ruin of lives by business partners. Still, you probably wouldn't expect it to affect your own family. You never imagine you'll have to use those abilities to safeguard your own daughter. It should have been obvious to me. Every indicator was present. Emily's health piqued Ethan's curiosity 4 months ago. Consistently pushed for her to revise her will, get more life insurance, and get a comprehensive physical. I naively believed he was merely acting as a doting spouse. Emily was making about $185,000 per year as a lead pharmacist at Denver General, where she had just been promoted. Ethan made around $190,000 per year as a hospital administrator at a separate institution. The young couple achieved great success. The future could be rationally planned for. Yet, those responsible deeds took on a sinister undertone upon hearing my daughter's terrified voice. It took me 31 minutes after that to reach their Cherry Creek townhouse. In the driveway stood Ethan's BMW. Work was his proper place to be. Ethan, who was dressed for the gym, opened the door to me as I knocked, his expression one of astonishment. "Michael, what are you doing here?" "Emily contacted me." The woman claimed that she had been experiencing episodes of fainting. "Oh, that." He waved his hand in dismissal. "She's fine. Just needs to adjust her medication. You know how she gets anxious about health stuff." A doctorate-holding pharmacist was my daughter. Concerns regarding her health never frightened her. In terms of health, she was more knowledgeable than the average doctor. "Where is she?" "Resting upstairs." "But honestly, Michael, you didn't need to drive all the way here. I've got it under control." Through him, I shoved. "I'll just look in on her." Emily lay pallid and perspiring on the bed. She made an effort to smile at me, but her frailty was plain to see. "Hey, Dad, you didn't have to come." Leif. With her hand in mine, I perched on the edge of her bed. Clammy and chilly it was. "Tell me exactly what's been happening." With a sidelong glance toward Ethan's lurking at the door, she returned her attention to me and said, "I don't know. For the past 18 days, I keep having these hypoglycemic episodes. My blood sugar just crashes. Even though I'm monitoring everything. I've been diabetic since I was 14. I know my body. This isn't normal. Have you changed anything? Diet? Exercise? Insulin brand?" "No." "Well." She trembled once more. "Ethan bought me a new insulin supply about 1 month ago. Said he got a good deal through his hospital connections, but it's the same brand I always use." My body was beeping with every inclination. Remaining composed, I spoke. "Where do you keep it?" "Downstairs in the fridge." "Why?" "Just curious. You know me, always methodical." I stroked her palm. "Get some rest. I'm going to make you some lunch." Downstairs, I went. As he sat in the living room, Ethan continued to text. I opened the refrigerator and discovered Emily's insulin in the kitchen. 4 vials, identical in batch. I photographed the labels, lot numbers, and everything else using my phone. The next thing I knew, I had been investigating financial crimes for 29 years, so it came naturally to me. I considered the money-making factors and the people who would gain from Emily's demise. An old colleague of mine, Victor Alvarez, had retired from the Internal Revenue Service and gone into private investigation. I retrieved my phone and dialed his number. "Victor, I need you to pull some records for me, quietly." "What's going on, Mike?" "My daughter's sick, her husband's being weird about it. I need to know if there's any life insurance I don't know about. Give me names and social security numbers." I recited the details of Emily and Ethan. "And Victor, check for any history on Ethan. Previous marriages, Criminal records, lawsuits, anything. You think he's dirty? I think my daughter keeps passing out, and her husband doesn't seem concerned enough. In my experience, when someone isn't worried about the right things, they're worried about getting caught. I brought Emily's soup and toast up to her room and observed while she ate. An opportunity to spend time with my daughter was my response to Ethan's offer to take over, which I declined. Instead of disputing, he merely returned to the lower level. I departed, but I did not return home, once Emily dozed off. The 5-block drive to a coffee shop gave me the time I needed to wait for Victor to return my call. After 55 minutes, he gave a call. "Mike, you're going to want to sit down." "I'm already sitting. What did you find?" "Ethan Crawford has a $4.5 million life insurance policy on Emily. I took it out 3 months ago. She's the insured. He's the beneficiary." A chill ran down my spine. 4.5 million? That's not all. Ethan was married before. Wife's name was Lauren. She died 2 years ago. Diabetic, just like Emily. Died from complications related to hypoglycemia. I clenched my fists over my phone till they turned white. How old was she? 33. And Mike. Ethan collected a $2.8 million life insurance policy from her death. Christ Jesus. There's more? I pulled Ethan's financials. He's drowning in gambling debts. He owes about $525,000 to various creditors and some very unfriendly people in Las Vegas. His credit cards are maxed out. He's 5 months behind on the mortgage for the townhouse that's in Emily's name. The guy is desperate. I had already turned the key to my truck on. "Send me everything you have, I'm going to the police." "Mike, wait. What you have is circumstantial. A suspicious death 2 years ago in another state. Financial troubles. An insurance policy. That's not enough for an arrest. You need hard evidence." He had a point. He had my full confidence. Over the course of my career at the IRS, I witnessed firsthand how our hasty decisions, in the absence of solid proof, cause scores of cases to collapse. Then I need to get evidence. Be careful. If Ethan is what you think he is, and he knows you're onto him, Emily is in more danger, not less. I returned to Emily's townhouse by car. Instead, I waited in a parking spot across the street this time. After getting out of his car, Ethan departed in his BMW around 6:15. After waiting 8 minutes, I used the spare key that Emily had given me many years ago to unlock the door. I made a beeline for Ethan's home office. Even though the door was locked, I had picked up some useful knowledge over the years. Choosing it took me no more than 2 minutes. Bills, statements from credit cards showing charges at casinos, notes of past due from the mortgage company, and letters from collection agencies filled his desk. The man's debts weighed him down. I took pictures of everything. I located his laptop afterwards. The lack of a password made it clear that he didn't think anyone would ever look. I began copying everything: files, financial documents, emails. After inserting a thumb drive, I noticed a folder labeled insurance documents just as I was going to leave. Upon opening it, I found the $4.5 million policy for Emily was accompanied by an additional document, an email correspondence between an individual named Thomas and an insurance provider. If the death was determined to have been caused by natural causes, Ethan wanted to know how long the claim procedure usually took to pay out and whether an investigation would be conducted. Prior to Emily's illness, the emails were sent 3 months ago. All along, he had been plotting this action. I made a copy of everything, turned off the computer, and left. As I began to accelerate, Ethan's BMW swung onto the roadway. While he parked and went inside, I dove down and watched. A tremor ran through my body, out of anger, not fear. Without missing a beat, I made my way to the Denver Police Department and quickly sought out Detective Rebecca Hayes. It had been 5 years since we'd collaborated on a fraud case. She believed in my gut feelings and was meticulous and intelligent. She became more glum as I gave her my findings. "This is bad, Mike. But we can't arrest someone for having debt and life insurance." It was in Nevada that his previous wife met a similar fate. Different court system, and the cause of death was determined to be unintentional. We'd need to prove this as a pattern, and we'd need physical evidence that he's actually doing something to harm Emily. Now, what about the insulin? Can you test it? If we can legally obtain it, yes. But if you just grab it from their house, any defense attorney will get it thrown out. We need Emily's consent or a warrant. Get the warrant based on what? Your suspicions? A previous wife who died in another state from natural causes? Judge won't sign it, Mike. Not yet. I wanted to turn the desk upside down. So, what do I do? Wait for him to kill my daughter? She drew closer to the subject. No. You get Emily somewhere safe. You get her to voluntarily give us her insulin for testing, and you get her to file a police report about feeling unsafe. That gives us grounds to investigate further. Once we test that insulin, if it's been tampered with, we have him. And if he realizes she's onto him, that's why you move fast. From the parking lot, I contacted Emily that night. "Honey, I need you to pack a bag and come stay with me for a few days." Dad, I'm fine. Really, I just need to rest. Emily, I'm asking you to trust me. Don't tell Ethan. Just pack a bag and leave. I'll explain everything when you get here. A brief hush fell over the room. You found something, didn't you? Intelligence ran in my family. That was something her mother had passed on to her. Yes. And I need you safe before I can tell you what. Okay, give me an hour. Ethan's going to the gym. I'll leave then. Emily's vehicle came into my driveway 1 hour and 10 minutes after that. Clearly, she was petrified. Inside, I escorted her to a seat and proceeded to inform her of everything. As her color changed from white to green, she bolted for the restroom and puked. She returned with trembling hands. His first wife. He told me she died in a car accident. He lied. He's been trying to kill me. Yes. She broke down in tears. The terrible, wrenching screams of betrayal, terror, and fury, not the gentle tears of melancholy. While my baby was breaking apart, I held her close and reminded her of the promises I'd made to her from the moment she was born. I'll protect you. I swear to God, Emily, I will protect you. We made our way to the station 2 days after that. Emily completed an official report and delivered her insulin. The insulin was urgently sent to the lab by Detective Hayes. Within 8 hours, the results were returned. 2 of the vials contained insulin that had been diluted with saline solution. Almost 4 times the usual strength of insulin had been added to the third vial, making it completely concentrated. Emily risked developing dangerous hypoglycemia shock if she had used that vial. Without help, she would have perished in her home. That jackass, Hayes remarked as he perused the report. He was killing her slowly with the diluted vials, making her think her diabetes was out of control, making her doubt herself. Then, when the time was right, he'd switch her to the concentrated vial. She'd inject it, thinking it was her normal dose, and she'd crash hard. By the time anyone found her, it would just look like a tragic accident. Diabetic woman who'd been having blood sugar problems took her insulin, and something went wrong. Can you arrest him now? Oh, we're doing better than that. We contacted Nevada. They're reopening Lauren Crawford's death investigation. And, Mike, Lauren's family kept her insulin vials. They're testing them now. How long before you bring Ethan in? We're getting the warrant now. Give us 3 hours. At my residence, I escorted Emily home. She did nothing while sitting on my couch. I loved him, she whispered softly. I trusted him. How did I not see it? Because he's done this before. He's practiced. Emily, this is not your fault. His first wife. Did she know at the end? I don't know, sweetheart. I hope she didn't. I hope she just thought she was sick. Because knowing Dad, knowing that someone you love wants you dead, that they've been planning it, that they've been lying to your face while they poison you, that's worse than dying. With my arm around her, I sat down next to her. But you're not dying, you're alive. And he's going to pay for what he did to you, and to Lauren, and to whoever else he's hurt. Someone called me. Detective Hayes. We've got him arrested at his office. And, Mike, Vegas PD just confirmed. Lauren's insulin was tampered with exactly the same way. He did this before. He practiced on his first wife, learned from it, and tried to do it better this time. What happens now? Now we build the case. We've got him on attempted murder, fraud, and we're coordinating with Nevada on murder charges for Lauren. The prosecutor thinks we can also get him on financial exploitation. Guy's looking at life without parole. Good. I observed the case progress throughout the subsequent month. As an excuse, Ethan's attorney attempted to say that the insulin manipulation had been accidental. Perhaps Emily had taken the wrong vials from the medical facility where she was employed. That collapsed when the prosecution presented evidence that the vials had been bought by Ethan from a supplier he had previously dealt with, rather than from Emily's hospital. Their next move was to claim Lauren's death had nothing to do with it. That all came crashing down when detectives in Nevada uncovered emails sent between Ethan and a life insurance agent 3 weeks prior to Lauren's death. In those emails, Ethan asked specific concerns regarding the claim procedure. The proof was indisputable. A record of Ethan's gambling debts found in the financial documents. Employees of a Las Vegas casino, who witnessed Ethan's tens of thousands of dollars in losses, provided testimony. According to medical records, Ethan bought insulin for Lauren and Emily, and their hypoglycemia episodes began not long after. Testimony from experts regarding the intentional manipulation of the insulin. Ethan sat through it all in court, continuing to play the victim and appear to be the worried husband. I gave testimony regarding my findings, the pattern I noticed, and the financial incentive. The jurors sat there, taking notes and keeping an eye on Ethan's body language. When someone stands to profit from another person's death and that person suddenly starts dying, you follow the money, I told the prosecutor when asked why I had become involved in investigating my son-in-law. I then turned to Ethan and said, because 29 years investigating financial crimes taught me one thing. The trail of money went directly to him. Redness washed over Ethan's face. It was the first time I noticed the mask breaking. Observed the fury underlying. You had no right, he yelled, his voice audible to every jury member present. She's my wife, this was none of your business. "She's my daughter," I stated in a composed manner. "And that makes it absolutely my business." The testing period was 5 weeks. For 8 hours, the jury deliberated, accused of everything. For his involvement in Emily's attempted murder and financial exploitation, Ethan received a 4-5-year prison sentence. His trial in Nevada was distinct from Lauren's, and he was found guilty of first-degree murder. He received a life sentence without the possibility of release as a result of that. The phrases would be presented in a linear fashion. At sentencing, the judge, a woman in her early 70s who had shown extraordinary patience throughout the trial, had a few last remarks. "Mr. Crawford, you are a predator. You preyed on defenseless women, betrayed their trust, married them, and then mercilessly killed them for money. You exhibited zero empathy, zero conscience, zero remorse. Emily Donovan is only alive today because her father saw through your crimes. You made the fatal mistake of underestimating him. You thought he wouldn't see through your meticulously plotted scam because he was retired and just a caring father." Then she turned to me. "Mr. Donovan, your daughter is alive because you paid attention, because you trusted your instincts, because you spent 29 years learning to recognize predators. This court commends you for your diligence and your courage." Emily and I stepped out of the courtroom into the Colorado sunshine after the sentencing. She appeared older than her 36 years due to the weight loss she experienced during the trial, but she was still alive. She had no danger. Her question was, "What do I do now?" Now you heal, you divorce him, you rebuild your life, and you never, ever doubt yourself again. "I don't know if I can trust anyone again, Dad." "You will. It'll take time, but you will. Because, Emily, what happened to you wasn't about your judgment, it was about his evil. He's a practiced con artist who's done this before. You didn't fail. You were targeted by a professional predator." She rested her head on my shoulder and whispered, "I appreciate you seeing things I missed. That's what fathers are for." After 8 months, Emily found a new place to call home. As part of her recovery from the incident, she was attending therapy appointments 3 times weekly. After taking a leave of absence from her pharmacy job to recover mentally and physically, she was finally laughing again, albeit cautiously and with a bit of a stutter. At her new house, I assisted her in unloading boxes. We finished up, and she brewed some coffee while we sat on her balcony, taking in views of Denver below. "I've been thinking about going back to school," she pointed out, "getting my pharmacy license to specifically work in toxicology, helping other people recognize when medications have been tampered with." "That's a great idea." I was contacted by members of Lauren's family. They intend to establish a fund in her honor to promote understanding of medical manipulation and domestic violence. My assistance was sought after. And I grinned. "Your mother would be so proud of you." When Emily was 21 years old, her mother Margaret passed away from breast cancer. With an unwavering commitment to her patients, Margaret had worked as a nurse. Ethan would have been immediately visible to her had she been alive. For a long time, she had excellent people sense. Emily whispered, "Lauren is on my mind a lot. She didn't have anyone to protect her. No one questioned it when she died. Ethan just collected his money and moved on to find the next target. But because of you, there won't be a next target. You stopped him." "We stopped him, Dad." I lifted my mug of coffee, to stopping the bad guys. My cup was clinked by hers. "And to dads who pay attention." As I drove home that night, thoughts of how near we had come to losing Emily raced through my mind. If I hadn't noticed the pause in her voice while we were on the phone, should I not have relied on my intuition? If my 30 years of training to spot manipulation and fraud hadn't been in vain? Ethan Crawford was rather proud of his intelligence, considered his system to be fully refined. I naively believed that a depressed, ill wife and her elderly father would be easy prey. His reasoning was that my expertise was no longer needed since I wasn't aggressively pursuing financial crimes. He perceived exactly what he desired. A caring father who may be ignored, controlled, or tricked. It was a mistake. For the simple reason that retiring does not render you any less of an investigator, the abilities remain, the instincts remain constant. Reading people, following evidence, and seeing when figures don't add up or stories don't make sense are all skills you'll never lose. It took Ethan Crawford 3 years to plot the murder of Emily. He looked into ways to dilute insulin. In order to rectify his errors, he reviewed Lauren's case. He built his financial alibi with great care. He believed he had attended to every detail. Unfortunately, there was something he failed to remember. He failed to remember that dads safeguard their daughters. That some dads have spent their whole lives perfecting their hunting techniques for him and other predators like him. Retirement does not mean that experience is lost. There will be more time to put it to use, that's all. A 6-4-year-old retired detective who paid attention when his daughter's voice trembled during a phone call ripped up his meticulously laid plan, and now he will spend the rest of his life behind bars thinking about that error and remembering that moment in court. Emily is doing well. It is true that Ethan is incarcerated. Finally, Lauren's family can rest easy. The right thing was done. I am reminded of the reason I dedicated 29 years to understanding evil whenever my phone rings and I hear Emily's voice, robust, healthy, and alive. The goal should not be post hoc punishment but rather prevention. There are those who believe that once you reach retirement age, your valuable years are over and you are reduced to nothing more than a dad, grandpa, or garage mechanic. That was also in Ethan Crawford's mind. He was mistaken. And there is the issue with underestimating individuals. You stop being cautious when you think someone is helpless, insignificant, or elderly simply because of that. Accidents happen. You do a poor job. Ethan made a mess. I was fully engaged. It is the reason my daughter is still alive. My parents stole my $27,800 college fund to save my brother from prison. I left with 2 bags. 10 years later, they begged for more. I said no. After all that has happened over the last few months, I need to get this off my chest. Perhaps some of you will understand. Perhaps you will believe I am uncaring. Anyway, here it is. I am a 30-year-old male, although my narrative began when I was 20. My parents had 2 children. Me and my brother Logan, who is 4 years older. From the moment I could form memories, it was evident who the favorite was. Logan could do no wrong in their eyes, even while he was doing everything wrong. Allow me to paint you a picture of my childhood. Logan obtained his first car at the age of 17, a brand new Honda Civic that his father co-signed for. When I reached 17, they gave me the keys to Logan's old beater, which he had previously driven 95,000 miles and crashed twice. Logan wanted to play football, so they purchased him all the equipment, took him to every game, and had his jersey framed after the season. When I made honor roll 4 semesters in a row, my mother responded, "That's nice, honey," without glancing up from her phone. But the true difference was not in what they offered us. It was in what they excused. Logan started getting into trouble in middle school. Initially, minor offenses such as skipping class, speaking back to teachers, and being suspended were reported. Mom and Dad would march Logan into the principal's office, as if he were the victim of a vast scheme. "He's just spirited," Mom said. "Boys will be boys," Dad would say. Meanwhile, I got grounded for a week because I neglected to take out the garbage. Logan truly got into his stride, being a complete screw-up in high school. He was busted with pot sophomore year, not just smoking it, but also selling it to freshmen in the school parking lot. Dad hired a lawyer and convinced the school board that Logan was simply making other children feel more at ease in a new situation. The lawyer charged $3,500. The arrest for vandalism occurred during junior year. Logan did not simply spray paint the other school's mascot. He broke into their trophy case and spray painted every trophy, then took photographs with his artwork and shared them on Instagram. The school system sought $9,500 in damages. Dad hired an even better lawyer for $6,000 and managed to get the sentence lowered to community service, which Logan never performed. But my personal favorite was the episode that nearly resulted to his expulsion senior year. Logan hosted a party while my parents were visiting my sick grandfather. Not just any party. He charged entrance, hired a DJ, and transformed our home into a nightclub. The neighbors contacted the cops after someone drove over their fence while attempting to park. When the cops arrived, they discovered 3 passed-out children, a flooded basement from someone breaking the water heater, and Logan passed out on the roof with no knowledge of how he got there. The property damage totaled approximately $14,000. Dad obtained a second mortgage to cover it. He barely graduated his senior year because he spent more time partying than studying. But my parents still threw him a lavish graduation party and boasted to everyone about how proud they were. They hired them the VFW Hall and invited 250 people to celebrate Logan's victory over his hurdles. I received a $25 Barnes & Noble gift card after I graduated with honors. Throughout this, I was grinding. I worked part-time at a grocery store, had a 3.9 GPA, and saved everything for college. See, my grandparents on my mother's side had set up education savings accounts for Logan and me when we were kids. Nothing much. But by the time I was 20, mine had grown to around $27,000. With the money I'd saved from work and several academic scholarships, I could afford to attend a good state school for computer technology. Logan's education fund had been depleted by his sophomore year of high school, having been spent on attorneys and court expenses, but that was fine with my parents because Logan wasn't going to college and would most likely work for Dad's construction company instead. What they didn't say was that Dad's construction company was barely surviving because Logan kept costing them contracts. It's difficult to preserve professional connections when your son shows up to job sites inebriated, has fights with subcontractors, and steals things to sell for drug money. Yes, that last portion came out during his second arrest in junior year. But I am getting ahead of myself. Allow me to tell you about the night that altered everything. It was March of my senior year. I'd just been accepted to state with a half-academic scholarship. I was over the moon. My hard effort was finally paying off. I planned to study computer science, leave this toxic house, and start something on my own. I returned home from my grocery store job about 10 p.m. I found my folks sitting at the kitchen table with Logan. He looked like hell, with bloodshot eyes, stubble, and the paleness that comes from 48 hours in county jail. This was his third DUI, and this time he had wrapped his vehicle around a telephone pole. Thank God he did not murder anyone. However, the car was totaled, and his blood alcohol level was nearly over the legal limit. Mom was crying, Dad was pacing, and Logan was sitting there with a stubborn expression on his face, as if the world owed him something. "We need to talk," Dad remarked upon seeing me. I sat down, still wearing my grocery store uniform, which smelled like the deli counter. "Logan's in some serious trouble," Dad said. "This third DUI, it's a felony. He's looking at real prison time unless we get him the best lawyer in the county." "Okay," I responded, unsure why this was including me. "How much does his lawyer charge?" Mom and Dad exchanged glances. That should have been my first warning. $30,000, Dad said quietly. The number struck me like a slap. $30,000, more than my entire college fund. "That's a lot," I said. "We don't have it," Mom lamented through tears. "The business is struggling. We've already mortgaged the house twice for Logan's other legal fees, and," I prodded, though some sick part of me already knew where this was leading. Dad cleared his throat. "We need to use your college fund." The room fell silent, but for the hum of the refrigerator. I stared at them, waiting for the punchline. "Just kidding." Or anything else that would signal this was a terrible joke. "My college fund," I said softly. "It's just temporary," Mom rushed to clarify. "Once Logan gets back on his feet, once the business picks up, we'll pay it back with interest. We promise." Logan eventually spoke up. "Come on, little brother. Families gotta stick together, right? Besides, you're smart. You'll figure out another way to pay for school. I'm looking at 8 years in prison if we don't fix this." I stared at this 23-year-old who had my DNA, had never worked for more than 4 months, had cost our family tens of thousands of dollars in legal bills and property damage, and was sitting there acting as if I owed him something. "No," I replied. Dad's face clouded. "Excuse me?" I said no. "That money is for my education. I've worked for 5 years saving every penny, maintained perfect grades, earned scholarships. Logan made his choices. I'm not paying for them. What happened next will be etched in my memory forever." My mother, the woman who reared me, stared me straight in the eyes and said, "How can you be so selfish? Your brother needs help." "What about what I need?" I asked. "What about my future? My dreams?" "You'll figure it out," Dad dismissively stated. "You always do. Logan doesn't have your advantages." "What advantages?" "Being responsible, working hard, following the law." Logan threw his fist upon the table. "God, you're such a self-righteous little prick. You think you're better than me because you get good grades and work at a grocery store? I think I'm better than you because I don't drive drunk and endanger innocent people," I told you. That was when Dad lost it. He stood up and shoved his finger into my face. "That money is in an account with your mother's name on it. We're going to use it whether you like it or not. Logan is family, and family takes care of family." "What am I then?" I inquired calmly. No one responded. The following morning I went to the bank with Mom. She took out every cent of my education fund, $27,800. 5 years of my hard work, 5 years of hope for a better future, all gone in an instant. I asked Mom once more at the bank parking lot, "Are you sure about this?" She couldn't even look at me. "Logan needs us right now. You'll understand when you're older, Ethan." That afternoon, I went into my guidance counselor's office to withdraw my acceptance to state. I informed her that there had been a family financial emergency. She was devastated. She had worked hard to help me obtain those scholarships. When I arrived home, I went straight to my room and began packing. I did not have much. When you're saving every penny for education, 5 years of part-time work leaves little room for amassing possessions. Logan was in the living room playing video games as if nothing had occurred. "Thanks, bro," he said without looking away from the TV. "I'll pay you back. I promise." I did not respond. Dad asked, "So, what's your plan now for school?" At dinner that night. "I'll figure it out," I answered, deflecting his comments back at him. Mom appeared uncomfortable. "Maybe you could take a gap year, save up again?" Sure, I replied. I'll just save up another $30,000 while working at a grocery store for $8.50 an hour. Should only take about 6 years if I don't eat or pay rent. Don't be dramatic, Dad said. That night I made a decision that would shape the following decade of my life. I was tired of being the responsible party who got screwed over for being responsible. I had had enough of being an afterthought child. I was done with everything. I had approximately $3,800 in my checking account, which I had been saving for textbooks and dorm room supplies. It wasn't much, but it was enough for a one-way Greyhound ticket to San Francisco, and possibly a month's survival if I was careful. I departed on a Tuesday morning while everyone was out. Mom was at her book group, Dad was at work, and Logan was most likely sleeping off another hangover. I packed everything that was important in 2 duffel bags, left my house key on my desk, and walked out of that house forever. I did not leave a note. I did not say farewell. I just disappeared. The first 2 years in San Francisco were the most difficult of my life. I couch surfed, lived in hostels, and slept in my car, a $1,000 Honda with 2,500 miles, when I couldn't afford anything else. That car, by the way, was a unique type of nightmare. The heater only worked if you hit the dashboard in the exact right spot. The passenger door had to be opened from the outside, and each time I started it, it produced the sound of a dying whale. But it was mine, and that was more than I could say for anything else in my life at the time. I worked every job imaginable, including dishwasher at a 24-hour diner where the cook taught me more curse words in Spanish than I knew existed in English. Dog walker for tech bros who paid me $60 to walk their designer dogs while they worked from their $4,000 a month apartments. And delivery driver for a restaurant that only served $20 artisanal grilled cheese sandwiches to people too drunk to cook. I used to work 3 or 4 jobs at once just to finance a room in a house with 6 other people. My living environment had a shifting ensemble of personalities that would make a sitcom writer weep with delight. There was Derek, the aspiring musician who practiced his experimental jazz fusion at 3 a.m. Lindsay, the graduate student who labeled every single item in the shared fridge with her name and the date, including individual baby carrots. And my personal favorite, Eric, who was convinced he was going to make a lot of money selling custom t-shirts with inspirational quotes he wrote himself. His bestseller, "Life is like a taco. You gotta hold it together, or everything falls apart." He sold only one shirt, to his mother. But here's the thing about reaching rock bottom. When you're 20, you're still youthful enough to recover and desperate enough to put in more effort than others. During my lunch breaks and after work, I'd go to the public library and teach myself to write in HTML, CSS, JAVAS, script, Python, and Java using any free materials I could find online. I spent every spare time learning, creating small projects, failing, and starting over. After around 8 months, I obtained my first IT job as a technical support specialist for a restaurant software business. It earned $40,000 per year, which seemed like hitting the lottery after months of working the minimum pay. The firm was typical Silicon Valley craziness, with 30 workers crowded into an office space designed for 12, working 80-hour weeks on energy drinks and the promise of equity that could be worth something someday. The workplace fridge was always stocked with exactly 3 things: old yogurt, someone's leftover Thai cuisine that had developed sentience, and roughly 50 different sorts of kombucha that no one wanted to drink but everyone pretended to enjoy. But I loved it. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who valued knowledge and hard work over family ties and sob tales. My coworkers didn't mind that I grew up in Ohio, or that my brother was a wreck. They cared if I could repair their server failures at 2 a.m., and yet show up the next morning with suggestions to improve the user interface. Blake, the CEO, had a propensity of holding emergency all-hands meetings at random times to discuss paradigm shifts and synergistic potential. Most of these encounters could have been conducted via email, but Blake was 28 and believed he was the next Steve Jobs. He wore the exact same black t-shirt every day. He claimed to own 35 identical shirts and insisted that our office required creative energy, which resulted in beanbags instead of seats and a broken ping-pong table that served as our sole conference table. I absorbed everything. I learned about the business, the technology, and the client side. When the company's single developer left after 8 months, something about Blake's habit of changing the entire product plan every Tuesday, I offered to take over his projects. Even though I'd never produced commercial software before, I worked nights and weekends to educate myself complex programming concepts, examine the source, repair issues, and create new features. The CEO, Blake, a 28-year-old Stanford dropout, recognized my work. After about a year, he approached me and said, "I'm not sure what your background is, but you're the most motivated person I've ever met. How would you feel comfortable leading all of our technical development? At the age of 22, I was appointed Chief Technology Officer of a 60-person company. That startup eventually failed, most do, but by then, I had real-world experience and a strong network. My next job was with a more established company that developed mobile apps for enterprise clients. The salary was higher, the equity was more, and I was learning about aspects of the IT sector that I had never seen before. But the true opportunity arrived in 2019, when I was 26. I'd been following the proliferation of remote work tools and spotted something that everyone else seemed to be overlooking. All of these systems were focused on video conferences and texting, but no one was addressing the underlying issue of project cooperation among technical teams. In my spare time, I started developing a prototype for a platform that would combine code repositories, project management, real-time collaboration, and deployment tools into a unified experience. It was essentially attempting to replace 6 different tools that each development team was utilizing independently. As I worked on it, I realized I was onto something significant. In March 2020, I resigned my work and used my money to develop the MVP over the next 8 months. When I ran out of money, I freelanced during the day to cover the rent and coded at night. I lived on ramen and caffeine, slept maybe 4 hours per night, and was definitely not the finest company during those months. But by September 2020, I'd created something that worked. I named it DevStream. The initial version was rough, but it addressed a real issue. I contacted every developer I'd ever known and begged them to try it. Within a month I had 300 users. Within 3 months, I had reached 3,000. By the end of 2020, I had 20,000 users and generated my first revenue. That's when venture capital firms began calling. I'll save you the details of fundraising, it's about as enjoyable as it sounds. But by April 2021, I'd secured $3 million in Series A funding. The timing was excellent. COVID struck, remote work took off, and suddenly every organization in the world required better tools for remote teams. DevStream grew from 20,000 to 200,000 users in 8 months. By the end of 2021, we had 700,000 users, and I was hiring workers faster than I could train them. By 2022, we were generating $65 million in yearly income. By 2023, we were profitable, and I was receiving takeover proposals. I did not sell. DevStream was my baby. The thing I created from scratch when I had nothing. Instead, I led a Series B financing that valued the company at $500 million. And I, the child whose education fund was stolen to bail out his alcoholic sibling, was worth around $250 million on paper. But here's the thing about success. It doesn't feel like you expect it to when you're fantasizing about it from the bottom. It's pleasant, yes, but it largely feels like more labor and obligation. I was proud of what I had accomplished, but I was no longer doing it to impress my family. By that moment, they felt like characters from another person's life tale. This leads me to last month. I was in my downtown San Francisco office, reviewing quarterly figures with my CFO, when my assistant knocked on the door. "There's a call for you," she explained. "Someone claiming to be your mother." I hadn't communicated with my family in over 10 years. Not one word. They had no idea where I was, what I was doing, or whether I was still alive. I'd changed my phone number, relocated several times, and started my adult life from scratch without them. "Tell her I'm not available," I said. But the calls continued coming, every day for a week. Sometimes Mom, sometimes Dad, and even Logan himself. I disregarded them all. Then Forbes published a story titled 40 Under 40, The Dropout CEO Revolutionizing Remote Work. They had done a full profile on me and DevStream. Photos, background narrative, and the works. They mentioned that I was from a little town in Ohio, that I had dropped out of college with ambitions to relocate to San Francisco, and that I had developed a $500 million firm from scratch. The tale went viral among the tech community. Within 24 hours, it was widely disseminated on social media. That is how my family found me. The next morning, my assistant informed me that there were 3 people in the foyer who claimed to be my family and demanded to see me. I'll be honest, I was curious. It had been 10 years. What did they want? How did they look now? Had Logan finally matured up? Did my parents ever worry if they had made the correct decision? "Send them up," I instructed her. 10 minutes later, my office door opened, and my family entered. They clearly looked older. Dad had turned gray and gained weight. Mom had more wrinkles and was dressed in clothes that appeared to be from Target. Logan too. Logan looked precisely like what he was. A 33-year-old man who had never had to mature. Scruffy, out of shape, and dressed in pants and a crumpled button-down shirt that was most likely a last-minute attempt to make him look acceptable by his mother. They stood there marveling at my office, which had floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the bay, fine furniture, and walls covered in awards and patents. This was not the life of someone who had suddenly figured it out after losing his college fund. This was the life of someone who had achieved beyond their wildest expectations. "My God," Mom whispered. "Is it entirely yours?" "It's my company," I responded, without moving from behind my desk. "What do you want?" Dad cleared his throat. "We have read the article. We had no idea you were performing this well." "You had no idea I was doing anything," I replied. "You never bothered to find out." "We tried," Mom replied hastily. "After you went, we attempted to locate you. We filed a missing persons report. We hired a private investigator." "For how long?" Silence. "How long were you looking for me?" I pressed. "About 10 months, Dad explained. The investigator said you'd probably surface when you were ready, and we couldn't afford to keep paying him." "Right. You could not afford it." "I'm sure Logan would have needed the money for his next legal cost." Logan eventually spoke up. "Come on, man, that is not fair. We were really anxious about you." I laughed. Really laughed. "Are you worried about being sick, Logan? You thanked me for giving up my education cash and then proceeded to play video games. You were concerned about your next high, not me." The room became quiet again. Through the windows, I could see San Francisco bustling below us, with people going to work, constructing their lives and pursuing their ambitions just as I had. "We'd like to explain," Mom replied softly. "Explain what?" "How you stole my future to bail out your golden child? How you chose his comfort over my dreams? How you never once asked if I was okay with sacrificing my education for his legal fees?" "We were going to pay you back," Dad insisted. "When it's been almost 12 years, have you paid me back?" More silence. "How is Logan doing, by the way?" I inquired. "Did that expensive lawyer work out? Did he turn his life around, get sober, find a career?" I knew the answer from their expressions. Logan shifted uneasily. "I've had some setbacks, but I'm doing better now. I've been clean for 8 months." "Congratulations. What about employment?" "I'm between jobs right now." "For how long?" "About 10 months. So you've been unemployed longer than you've been clean." "That's progress, I guess." Mom looked like she was going to cry. "We know we made mistakes. We know we hurt you. But you're our son, and we've missed you every single day." "Missed me so much that you gave up looking for me after 10 months? We didn't know what else to do," she said. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city that had given me everything my family could not. Opportunity, merit-based achievement, and people who appreciated what you contributed, rather than who you were related to. "Why are you here?" I inquired without turning around. "We want to reconnect," Dad explained. "We want you back in our lives. We want to be a family again." I turned around and stared at them. These 3 people who had sculpted my life, made me feel worthless and invisible, taught me that love was conditional, and that families had favorites. "What's the financial situation at home?" I asked her. Dad blinked. "What?" "Your finances. Logan's unemployed. You're both in your mid-60s. The construction business is probably struggling. What's your situation?" "We're managing," Mom remarked cautiously. "How's Logan's housing situation?" I inquired. "Still living with you?" "Temporarily," Logan mumbled. "How temporarily?" 8 months? 2 years? 5 years? It's complicated," Dad explained. I nodded. "And you saw the Forbes article about me being worth $250 million and thought, finally, our ship has come in." "That's not why we're here," Mom answered, but she refused to meet my gaze. "Isn't it? You didn't wonder about me for 10 years, but a magazine mentions I'm wealthy, and suddenly you need to reconnect. You couldn't afford a private investigator to find your missing son, but you could afford plane tickets to San Francisco. When you discovered your missing son had money..." Logan's rage flared. "Some things never change. Look, we get it. You're successful now. You don't need us, but we're still your family." "Are we?" I asked. "Because families don't steal from each other. Families don't abandon each other. Families don't choose favorites and leave the other kid to figure it out alone." "We never abandoned you," Mom insisted. "You took away my future for Logan's convenience. What would you call that?" Dad stepped forward. "We made a mistake." We know that now. But Logan was looking at prison time. And I was looking at a lost education. But only one of those things mattered to you. We thought you'd recover, Dad replied urgently. You were always so capable, so smart. We knew you'd be fine. I was fine. No thanks to you. But being fine and being family are two different things. The room fell silent save for the hum of the air conditioner and the distant sound of traffic below. Finally, Mom played her final card. We love you. We've always loved you. We know we made mistakes, but you're our son. Doesn't that count for something? I scrutinized her expression, looking for authenticity, genuine guilt, and any hint that this was about more than money. What I witnessed was desperation. How much do you need? I inquired calmly. They all stared at each other. I'm sorry, Dad replied. You didn't come here just to reconnect. You came here because you need money. Logan's probably racked up more legal bills or medical bills or gambling debts. Your retirement savings are gone, the house is mortgaged, you're looking at bankruptcy or worse. So, how much do you need? The silence went on forever. Logan broke first. Things have been rough since Dad's accident. What accident? He fell off a roof last year, Mom said. Hurt his back. He can't work construction anymore. Workers' comp isn't covering everything, and the medical bills. How much? I repeated. $100,000, Dad murmured. Between the medical debt, what we owe on the house, and Logan's legal fees from his last arrest. His last arrest? I thought he was clean. He is clean, Logan replied defensively. The arrest was from before. Something finally caught up with me. I walked back to my desk and sat down, 3 people staring at me with hope and desperation, waiting for me to cure their issues with my checkbook. Do you know what $100,000 is to me now? I was wondering. They shake their heads. It's about 8 hours of DevStream's revenue. It's what I spend on coffee for the office in 5 months. It's less than I paid for the watch I'm wearing. Their eyes brightened with optimism. But do you know what $30,000 was to me when I was 20? I spoke more. The hope began to evaporate. It was everything. It was my future. It was 5 years of my grandparents' love and sacrifice. It was my chance to become something more than the invisible kid from Ohio, and you gave it away without a second thought. We were desperate, Mom explained. So was I. But nobody cared about my desperation. I opened my laptop and looked at DevStream's bank accounts, which were dizzyingly large figures. Money I'd acquired by working 80-hour weeks, sleeping on friends' couches, and teaching myself skills that no school could have taught me. Anyway, I could write you a check right now that would solve all your problems, I explained. I could pay off your house, Logan's legal bills, Dad's medical debt, and give you enough left over to live comfortably for the rest of your lives. They held their breath. But I'm not going to. Logan was the first to erupt. Are you kidding me? We're your family. No, Logan. Families support each other. Families believe in each other. Families don't steal from each other to bail out the family screw-up for the 12th time. That was 12 years ago, he exclaimed. And what have you done in those 12 years? What have you built? What have you contributed? What have you learned from all those expensive lessons my college fund paid for? He had no response. I turned to my parents. Do you know what the worst part is? It's not that you took my money. Money can be replaced. It's that you never believed in me. You were so sure Logan was worth investing in, and I was just the responsible one who'd figure it out. You never stopped to consider what I might become if given the chance. We believe in you now, Mom replied through her tears. Now that it benefits you to believe in me. Now that I can write checks. But where was that belief when I was 20 and working 2 jobs to save for college? Where was it when I was getting straight A's while Logan was getting arrested? Dad tried once more. We can't change the past. But we can be a family going forward. I shake my head. No, we can't. Because you haven't learned anything. You're not here because you're proud of what I've accomplished, or because you've realized you were wrong. You're here because you need something from me. What would it take? Mom said frantically. What would we have to do to earn your forgiveness? I thought about it for a long time. Go back in time and choose differently. Believe in me when it mattered. Support my dreams instead of destroying them. Love me for who I was. Not for what I could do for Logan. We can't do that, she muttered. No, you can't. Just like I can't pretend that the last 12 years of my life happened because you believed in me, instead of in spite of your lack of belief. I approached my office door and opened it. I think we're done here. Logan made one final desperate play. You know what? Maybe it's better this way. Maybe you're right to cut us out. You've turned into exactly the kind of selfish, cold person who puts money over family. I'm glad we took your college fund. You would have just turned into a jerk anyway. I smiled. Actually smiled. Logan, I had nothing when you took that money. I slept in my car, I lived on ramen noodles. I worked 4 jobs just to afford a shared bedroom with 5 strangers, and I was still happier than I ever was living in that house with you. Because you got lucky with some stupid app? He retorted. No. Because I got away from people who made me feel worthless. Success was just a bonus. They filed out slowly. Mom looked back from the doorway, tears running down her cheeks. I hope someday you can forgive us, she continued. I already have, I informed her. But forgiveness doesn't mean trust. And it doesn't mean money. After they went, I stayed at my window for a long time, observing the city below. My assistant knocked and came inside. How did it go? She said kindly. She had worked for me for 3 years and had never seen me upset by anything. Like I expected, I said. They needed money, not a relationship. I'm sorry. I returned to my work, reflecting on the firm I'd developed and the life I'd constructed from nothing. Don't be, I replied. I'm not. It was 5 weeks ago. They tried contacting me a few more times, but I did not answer. Logan sent a lengthy email, which I erased without reading. Mom attempted contacting DevStream's customer service, which was quite astounding in its desperation. Update. It's been 3 months since I posted this, and I didn't anticipate it to go so popular. Thank you to everyone who submitted their personal family experiences. It made me realize that I wasn't the only one who had gone through anything similar. A few folks requested an update, so here's what occurred. Logan was detained again last month on another DUI and possession charges. Apparently, he had been using again for months, not just 8 as he stated. Mom called DevStream's main line and begged me for assistance with another lawyer. I did not take the call. Dad's medical bills have gotten worse. My cousin, Mom's nephew, contacted me on Facebook to inform me that Dad might lose the house. He wasn't asking for money, he just wanted me to know. I appreciate the heads up, but my response remains no. The hardest aspect is that certain members of my extended family believe I am uncaring. My aunt wrote on Facebook about blood is thicker than water and how family should always come first. Several cousins have unfriended me on social media. But here's what I've discovered. The individuals who are upset with me for not helping are the same ones who never helped me when I needed it. They were all aware of how my family had treated me growing up. They all watched Logan have chance after chance while I went unnoticed. None of them spoke up at the time, and none of them volunteered to help when I was sleeping in my car at the age of 20. It's easy to be generous with other people's money and forgiveness. The good news is that breaking ties totally has been freeing. I changed my phone number, relocated to a new apartment, and informed anyone who inquired that I was finished with that phase of my life. I forbade my son from attending his girlfriend's funeral, thinking it would save him from her toxic influence. He defied me, and I locked him out forever. My 20-year-old son Noah has always been the focal point of my life. For a long time, it was just the two of us. Noah's father, Mark, left when he was 10, and I was the one who kept things together. I worked 2 jobs, made sure he had all he needed, pushed him to earn good grades, and helped him plan for college. I was strict, but I needed to be. I was not going to let my only child waste his future. Then he met Maya, a 19-year-old female. She was in his senior year at the same high school and came from what I can only characterize as a shattered family. Her mother, Karen, was continuously changing jobs, and her father, David, was not present. From the time I met her, I had the impression she intended to bring Noah down to her level. She was always outgoing, passionate, and emotional about everything. The type of girl who thrived in chaos. She'd show up at our house in ripped jeans and unkempt hair, calling me Mrs. Reed as if we were pals. I informed Noah right away that I did not approve of her and that she was not the type of girl he should be serious with at his age. But he did not listen. He claimed I didn't comprehend her. They were inseparable for more than a year. I began to notice that his grades were slipping. He'd stay out late, cease checking in, and arrive home smelling like her perfume. I told him he was becoming someone I didn't recognize. We battled almost weekly. I even tried to put my foot down by telling him he was not permitted to see her under my house. He labeled me controlling and claimed I didn't want him to be happy. It was not that. I wanted him to be protected. I recognized my own mistakes in him. I too became pregnant at the age of 20 with a man who abandoned me before the ink on the birth certificate dried. I've spent half my life excavating out of that hole. I did not want Noah to repeat history with a girl who had no future. Then the accident occurred. It was Sunday morning. Maya and her friends were traveling home from a late-night concert when the driver fell asleep behind the wheel. The automobile flipped, 4 children were hospitalized, and Maya did not survive. Noah was at work when he received the call from one of her pals, and I'll never forget his reaction when he heard it. He collapsed right in the kitchen. For 4 days, he seldom ate or slept. I tried to console him, but he refused to let me approach. He just sat in his room, sobbing over her images. I reminded him that while I understood his sadness, he couldn't let it destroy him. I told him he needed to move on, focus on the future, and not wallow in grief over a girl who had made all the wrong decisions. Then he informed me he wanted to attend the burial. I said no. He lost it. He yelled at me, saying that I was callous, that she meant everything to him, and that he couldn't live with himself if he didn't say goodbye. I informed him that funerals were for family, and that she was not his wife. He described her as more of a family member than I ever was. That one stings. I told him he couldn't go because it would merely rekindle old scars and he should focus on college applications rather than languishing. He went off and slammed his door, and I assumed that was the end of it. The next morning, I awoke to find his bed made and his shoes gone. His phone was still charging on his desk, but his car keys were gone. I contacted his pals, but nobody answered. Later that afternoon, I noticed some photos on social media. He stood at the casket, grieving in front of everyone. Someone had tagged him. My heart sank and I felt ashamed, as if I had been publicly disobeyed by my own son. I was waiting when he got home that night. I told him to go. I told him if he believed he was so mature, he could go live like an adult. I replied I'd had enough of being insulted in my own home. He raged at me, saying I was evil, and that she would hate me even more now. I told him to go. He walked out the door without saying another word. I locked it behind him. That night I grabbed his clothes, posters and computer. I donated the majority of it the next day. I tossed away a handful of his personal items, including letters, photographs, and keepsakes from that girl. I did not want them in my home. I convinced myself I was ridding the house of negative energy, the toxic influence that had turned my son against me. When neighbors and family inquired, I replied Noah had fled. I informed them that he had packed everything and departed because he wanted to start afresh. I even told my sister Rachel that he was probably staying with Maya's family. I figured that would make them stop asking questions. It did. That was 10 days ago. I have not heard a single word from him. There are no calls, messages, or anything. Noah's best friend Ryan texted me that he was safe, but did not say where. I told him to tell Noah that I had changed the locks. He never responded. I'm not sure what I expected. I expected him to come back begging, or at least call, once he realized how foolish he had been. But now the house seems empty. The silence is terrible. I constantly checking my phone for messages, but they never come. I still believe I was correct not to let him attend that funeral. That girl damaged him, and if I hadn't intervened, he would have followed her road straight into catastrophe. But now I am beginning to worry if I went too far. My sister thinks I'm cruel. She claimed if Mom were still alive, she would call me a monster. It aches. I did everything for that boy. I devoted decades of my life to raising him alone. I only wanted to prevent him from falling into the same trap I did. I used to believe that being firm meant loving someone. I figured keeping him away from her would save him. Instead, it feels as if I buried them both. Everyone online calls me callous. One of Maya's friends even made a Facebook post about me, writing, "I banned my son from mourning." People are messaging me, calling me names. I don't think anyone realizes how terrible it is to watch your child spiral into something you know is bad for them. Perhaps I went too far, but I don't believe I was wrong to try to protect him. I still haven't slept. Every time I close my eyes, I hear him shouting, "You buried me with her." I keep seeing his face in that funeral photo. He appeared older, damaged, like if I had lost him long before that night. I leave the porch light on just in case. I don't know if he will ever return. Update 1. It's been about 3 weeks since my original article, and I need to clarify a few points since people, both online and in person, are spreading misinformation about me. I've been accused of being abusive, of discarding my son like trash, and of being some sort of monster. I understand how that post made me seem. I was angry when I wrote it, raw and hurt. Maybe I did not explain things well enough. Perhaps people read what they wanted to read, but I refused to let them rewrite the story as if I were some cold-hearted villain who despised her own child. Noah still has not returned home. That is the portion that I cannot spin or soften. Regardless of hard I try, I know where he is now. Maya's parents visited my place 5 days ago. They did not even call first. They just arrived on my porch with that look, the one individuals give when they've already decided what kind of person you are. Her mother, Karen, stood there gripping her pocketbook, as if she were about to swing it at me. Her father, David, said they needed to talk about Noah. Apparently, he has been staying with them. They stated he turned up the night after I told him to leave, still dressed for the funeral. They took him in because, quote, no child deserves to be homeless after losing the person they love. When I inquired how long they meant to keep him there, David said, as long as he needs. Karen then looked me dead in the eyes and stated, he's safe with us. You've done enough. That phrase keeps repeating in my thoughts. I told them they were overstepping, that this was not their place, and that they were using his pain to fill the void their daughter had left. Karen shot back. At least they didn't throw their child out into the street. I told her she was fortunate to have a child worth keeping. She slapped me hard. I didn't hit back. I'm not that type of person. I asked them both to leave before calling the cops. They left, but not before David added, you buried him right along with her. It's the second time I've heard those words, first from Noah, and now from them. That sentence is becoming very irritating to me. I tried calling him after that visit. Clearly he did not take up. His old numbers remained disconnected. So I received their home number from my sister, Rachel, who somehow possessed it. He responded after a few rings. He didn't even sound like my son when he said hi. It was flat and freezing. I said, Noah, it's Mom. There was nearly a minute of stillness before he replied, you buried me with her. He then hung up. I know everyone will tell me I deserved it, but no one understands what it's like to see your child drift away from you piece by piece. To have him idolize someone you know will ruin him. Maya was not a horrible child, but she was troubled. She had a wild attitude that drew everyone else into the storm. I was not attempting to punish Noah. I was trying to prevent him from drowning. And perhaps I was overly harsh, but I was desperate. Parents do not receive manuals for this. After my first post, someone in our town, I'm not sure who, found it and shared screenshots on Facebook. Everyone now knows. People from my church, neighbors, co-workers, and even Noah's former teachers. It has been humiliating. The comments are harsh. I've been branded abusive, narcissistic and callous. Our pastor, Pastor Bennett, told me, maybe you should take some time away from community events because you've become a distraction. Translation. He doesn't want to deal with the gossip. Even my sister turned against me. She texted me saying she had seen the article and that I needed professional assistance. I informed her that she has always had a soft spot for drama and has no idea how to raise a child alone. She replied, I don't need to know. I know you went too far. Another phrase that I keep hearing. Okay, maybe I did. But no one is looking at the whole picture. Noah has always been emotional and sensitive. He takes everything to heart. Even as a child, he would cry if I raised my voice. I needed to be the strong one, the adult. Someone has to keep this family together. If I had let every teenage whim of his rule our lives, we'd still be cleaning up after his actions. I have never been unkind for the sake of it. Every rule and limit stemmed from love. The type that does not crumble just because your child smashes a door. What hurts the most is that people assume I gave his belongings out of malice. That is not true. Yes, I got rid of some items that reminded me of her, letters, pictures, trinkets. But I also donated many of his clothes to charity. I did not burn or toss them away, as some have suggested. I wanted to help other disadvantaged families. If anything, that was my attempt to convert a difficult situation into something positive, but everyone turns it into a nasty deed. Even my co-workers look at me differently today. One of them muttered that I donated her son, rather than his clothes. That day, I came close to quitting. I've been praying every night for him to return home. I don't want to be right, I just want him safe. I've kept the porch light on since the night he left. My neighbors surely think I'm nuts. Perhaps I am. But when I see the glow in the driveway, I nearly think he's about to pull in. Last night I learned from a mutual friend that Noah has been seeing her former counselor, Dr. Collins, for therapy. That felt like another betrayal, as if he were rewriting his pain as a tale in which I was the villain and she was the saint. According to the acquaintance, Maya's parents drive him there twice a week and then he remains for dinner with them. They even assisted him in enrolling in online programs because he did not feel comfortable returning home. I can't convey how angry I was after hearing that. not jealousy. Something worse. I did all of the difficult parts of motherhood. I stayed awake with him through every fever, grief, and missing homework project. I taught him to drive. I worked double shifts to purchase his first laptop. I worked hard to get him into a decent college. And now these people, these strangers, get to play house with him because I made a single mistake. That is not fair. I emailed him last night. It was not ideal. I was emotional. But I assured him I was still his mother. That I would always love him, and that he did not belong in that house. I informed him that they were trying to replace their daughter with him. I said, "Noah, you're not their son. You're mine." He didn't respond. Instead, this morning I received a short message from an unknown number. It simply said, "Stop contacting me. You've buried me with her 3 times." Same words. I don't know what to feel anymore. Guilt. Fury. Or both. I want to believe I can still solve this. That one day he will see I did the right thing. But with each passing day, it feels like the ground is slipping away from under me. People keep encouraging me to apologize and accept responsibility for my actions, but they don't realize that an apology would not restore the years I spent constructing our life. It will not make him trust me again. Sometimes I sit in his old room, or what's left of it, and reflect on how peaceful it is. There is no music, no dirty clothes on the floor, and no sound of him pacing while on the phone. I used to gripe about all of these things. Now, the silence feels like punishment. I'm not sure if he'll ever come home, but if he does, I'll be prepared. I will still expect respect and boundaries. I am his mother, not his enemy. But I'll agree that the house feels colder without him. Update 2. It's been 8 months since my previous post. If you're here to gloat, you'll get your fill quickly. As far as I know, Noah is officially and forever gone. He relocated out of state in March. He is currently attending some college in Oregon. I only discovered out when Rachel forwarded me a Christmas letter from one of Maya's relatives, of all people. Apparently, he has been accepted into the photography program there. Funny, because when I pushed him for engineering scholarships, he claimed I was strangling his creative energy. I suppose he finally achieved the independence he desired. He changed everything, even his phone number and email address. I've been blocked on every social media platform he has ever used. The only thing that remains is his previous Facebook profile picture, which shows him and Maya at a pumpkin farm. He's locked there at 18, smiling as if he doesn't have the entire world ahead of him. I keep saying he as if he were a stranger because that is how it seems right now. A stranger I once raised. My reputation in town has deteriorated since the last update. I used to be the head of our church's women's auxiliary. They replaced me discreetly. No meeting, no thank you present, and no mention. People still smile when they see me at the grocery store, but it's a pity grin, the type you give to someone you believe is damaged. I hear whispers when walking down the baking aisle. That's the woman who threw her son out. One morning someone scribbled "monster" in chalk on my mailbox. At first, I wanted to shout at everyone that they didn't know the complete story and that I was protecting my child from making the same mistakes I did. But, after months of silence from him, I began to worry if they knew. Perhaps they didn't need the specifics to identify a mother who went too far. Nonetheless, I refuse to portray myself as evil. I am not a storybook villain twirling her hair in the dark. I was a mother doing what she believed was necessary. People act as if love should always be soft and yielding. That is not love. Love is discipline. It's structure. It's knowing when to say no, even if it means breaking your heart. That was what I used to tell myself anyway. The house feels different now. I used to think I desired silence. No loud music, no slamming doors. Now I can't take it. It's a humming silence that seems heavy and vibrant. Even though I know he isn't there, I can sometimes hear his footsteps. I have not touched his old room since February. I tried at first. I actually did. After I tossed everything away that night, I promised myself not to dwell. But one day, I discovered one of his old school notebooks at the bottom of a box I had overlooked, and for some reason, I couldn't get rid of it. I put it on his shelf, and that sparked it. I slowly began putting things back together. An old hoodie, a baseball cap, and a photo of him with our dog. The room appears to have been lived in again, however this is a falsehood. It is a shrine. Now I get what that sounds like. But it is not obsessive. It is memory. It's attempting to preserve evidence that there once was laughing in this house. In late March I drove to the cemetery. I told myself I was going to see my parents' graves, but that was a lie. I parked at the far end, near the section where Maya was buried. I waited until after dusk, when the caregivers were gone. Her burial was adorned with fresh flowers, predominantly lilies, as well as a few wild daisies, which she liked to collect and braid into her hair when she visited our house. I remained there for a while, watching the wind blow through them. Someone had left a camera keychain and a small folded letter behind a stone. I didn't have to open it to recognize it was from him. I'd brought my own note. I had rewrote it 3 times. The initial version was angry and accusatory, much like everything else I'd spoken throughout my life. The second was defensive, an attempt to excuse what I had done. The third was the only one that I could do without shaking. It said, "I wanted to protect you, but I forgot you weren't a boy anymore. You didn't need saving. You needed trust. I failed you." I left it beneath one of the blooms. Then I sat in my car sobbing until my throat burnt. I hadn't sobbed since his father, Mark, had left 14 years earlier. A few days later, I received a voicemail from a number I did not know. The voice was older and calmer, but I knew it was his. He spoke. "Mom, I got your note. I'm not mad anymore. I'm grateful in a way. You taught me how to survive things I thought would kill me. You also taught me how to walk away from things that were destroying me. Thank you for that." He left a message before I responded. There is no return number. Only that message. That's the cruelest kindness of all. Hearing his forgiveness and knowing it doesn't provide a way back in. I play it virtually every night. At first, I viewed it as a sign that he will eventually return home, but it has been months and nothing. I believe that message was not an invitation, it was a goodbye. My sister Rachel suggested that I sell the house and relocate somewhere else to start again. She commented, "This place is haunted." Perhaps she is correct, but it feels like the only thing I have left of him. I wander through each room, recalling the sound of his words echoing off the walls. Every crack in the floorboards feels like a conversation that never ended. Sometimes, late at night, I sit at the kitchen table and write letters that I will never send. Letters in which I inform him about minor things like the new neighbors who installed wind chimes, the dog 2 streets over that barks every morning, and the smell of rain on the old fence. I imagine he is somewhere warm and full of sunshine. This is how I cope. I've started going to therapy, not because I think I need to be fixed. I still don't believe I'm broken, but I can't continue living in this half-life of guilt and silence. Dr. Collins, the therapist, asked me during our first session why I despised Maya so much. I told her I didn't. I despised what she represented. She questioned what that meant, and I replied, freedom, because that's what it was. She was the type of girl who rushed into life without thinking twice, unconcerned about the repercussions. I used to be like that, before Noah. Prior to taking on responsibility. Prior to becoming pregnant at the age of 20, I had to abandon all of my dreams. Maya reminded me of the girl I used to be, carefree, innocent and full of optimism. And I despised her for it. Dr. Collins commented that it sounded like I wasn't attempting to save Noah from her. I was attempting to prevent myself from remembering. I did not have an answer for that. I no longer post online, not after my last update was widely shared, but I keep reading the comments. Some people were harsh, undoubtedly, but others said something that stayed with me. Control is not the same as love. I have thought about that sentence every day since. When I was younger, I thought love meant protecting others from sorrow, even if it meant causing it. I imagined I could shape my son's life in the same way I would shape a garden, pruning what didn't belong and cutting what would grow wild. But humans are not gardens. You are not allowed to cut their hearts to make them neat. You may either let them bloom, or lose them. And I lost him. The house is quiet again tonight. The porch light is still on. I've never turned it off. Not once in 8 months. But now I realize it isn't a beacon. It is a memorial. Final update. 1 year has passed. I began by counting the days, followed by the weeks. Then I stopped for a bit since it made the hours seem longer. I now know the number, 366. When I wake up, I announce it out, much like a weather report. It reminds me that time moves, even when I feel stuck. People told me to let the thread die, accept my guilt, and go silent. I did get quiet, but I don't believe shame solves anything on its own. Outsiders see silence as orderly. Inside, it rots. I'm writing today because I have something to say, and quitting the story at the midway point would be one more act of control. I've done enough of those. I made changes since my last update. Not big movie changes, but actual ones. I joined 3 organizations. One is a grief circle that meets in a church basement on Wednesday evenings. The pastor, Pastor Bennett, is unfamiliar with my name. I like it. We sit in ancient chairs. drink cardboard-tasting coffee, and say difficult sentences aloud. The other is for parents with estranged adult children. The room is quieter. The words get trapped in the throat. People whisper their children's ages as if they were lit candles. I still see my therapist, Dr. Collins, on Mondays. She does not allow me to dodge. She asks few inquiries, then waits. I initially despised her for keeping me waiting. Now I understand that stillness is where the truth finally emerges. She made me write the same words every morning for a month. Control is not care. It felt stupid. Then, on day 14, I wrote it and remembered the porch light I had left on, and understood it wasn't a welcome. It was a spotlight. Despite the fact that the stage was empty, I continued to direct the scenario. I tried to reach Noah in the spring. Nor a surprise attack, nor a stunt. I went through the normal channels. The student services office at his college. I submitted a short letter in the envelope provided for this reason. It read, "I hope you're safe. I'm in treatment. I am proud of you, whether you talk to me or not." I included my phone number with my address. I signed it, Mom. 3 weeks later, the form email arrived. It stated that the student had requested that no personal texts be forwarded. It was nice, clear, and final. I read it 3 times, closed my laptop, and waited in the backyard until the motion lights turned off. I didn't drive to the airport. I did not seek out his dorm. I didn't call anyone to plead. I went to my Wednesday group and announced out, "He asked for no contact." It stung, but it felt clean. Summer made the house hot. I left the windows open at night, and the breeze brought other people's lives into my kitchen. Laughter, a baby wailing, and a pop song from 2 streets away. I stopped sitting in Noah's room. I shut and left the door closed, not as a shrine, but as a boundary. Dr. Collins remarked, "You keep trying to rebuild the past when you are supposed to be building a future." I told her I didn't know how. She explained, "Professional stubbornness counts for something. Aim it at the correct object." So I utilized it. I discovered a youth center 2 towns away that hosts a program for teenagers who have lost someone. I filled out documents, went through background checks, and attended training where they taught you to listen without fixing. The first night I observed a boy scuff the toe of his shoe on the floor for an hour without saying anything. The second night, he said his father's name and wailed into his sleeves. I sat beside him and counted my own breaths. I didn't give a lecture about resilience. I handed him a box of tissues and told him, "I am not going anywhere." When I left, my clothes smelled like bleach from the rec room, and I was fatigued in a way that suddenly made sense. Around October, I received a letter. The envelope was cream and made of thick paper, similar to what is used for weddings or condolence cards. My hands shook as I opened it, thinking it might be from Noah. It was not. It came from Maya's parents, Karen and David. I sat at the table and read it twice before the words became still. They stated that they had not forgotten what had occurred to us. They wrote that certain wounds produce scar tissue while others remain sensitive. They reported that Noah was doing well. He is still in school. He has friends. He works part-time at a camera business that still processes film in the rear. He will graduate on time if he maintains his current grades. They wrote that he doesn't detest me. He is adamant about no contact. That firm was underlined once. They claimed he asked them to let me know he was safe, housed, and not doing anything to dull himself. I cried loudly and quickly, like a hiccup. The second page featured the kind of mercy that stings. Karen wrote, "There are details I never knew." She said that she debated whether to include them. Then she penned them nevertheless, because secrets become poison if left buried too long. Maya was pregnant when she died prematurely. She had informed Noah a week before the crash. They were both terrified. They had not informed their parents. They planned to speak with a counselor. He'd scheduled the appointment. It was the Wednesday after. There is no after. I set the letter down and stood in Noah's room. The door open. The air smelled like dust and laundry detergent. I sat on the side of the bed, spoke the word, grandchild, into an empty room, and felt something in my chest gently tear. The way old fabric gives when you pull on a rip. I now understand why he said those words to me. You buried me with her. He had lost more than just a girl. He'd lost a future that he hadn't even had time to plan. I respected his right to mourn in the place and time that was appropriate for him. I did not simply miss the mark. I took the bow out of his hands. I replied back to Karen and David. I didn't argue. I did not provide a defense. I thanked them for telling the truth, and for being compassionate to my son, even when I wasn't. I stated that I would not contact them again until asked. I intended it. Some people believe that setting boundaries is a sign of weakness. It isn't. It is a barrier you erect around your darkest tendencies. November brought colder temperatures and shorter days. Work remained steady. People in my community eventually ran out of gossip or were bored. One woman in the cereal aisle tried to corner me with pity, but I answered, "No, thank you," and left. It felt like a small backbone was sprouting back. My sister Rachel called on Thanksgiving. She asked if I wanted company. I invited her to come by at noon for pie and coffee, not dinner. She sniffed at the limit. She arrived at lunchtime. She departed at 1:30. We did not discuss Noah for more than 5 minutes. I didn't weep. I felt relieved when she backed out of my driveway. Relief is not treachery. It's breathing. December is always a tough month. Lights light up, music plays in stores, and memories become loud. The youth center requested volunteers to help a few families decorate. I answered yes, no, and yes again. The morning of, I awoke at 4:30 a.m. and sat on the couch with the tree lot flyer in my lap, remembering how Noah and I debated about tinsel versus ribbon last Christmas. He despised ribbon. He claimed it made a tree resemble a birthday present. I purchased tinsel. I believed that was a sign of compromise. The center trip concluded around nightfall. The air had a bite. I drove home via a path I hadn't taken in a year. Habit, I suppose, or muscle memory. It led me past Karen and David's street. I promised myself I'd keep going. I slowed at the corner anyhow. Their house is set back from the road, with blue shutters and a porch swing. Somebody had strung nice white lights along the railing. Through the window I noticed a tall man on a ladder inside, reaching to place a star. The person on the floor reached up to hold it steady. He laughed. I recognize his laugh. It begins in his chest and hides in his neck. I parked a half block away and watched like a robber. I despised myself for it. I watched anyway. He appears to be older. Not hard or exhausted but rather filled out. His hair used to flop into his eyes, but it's shorter now. His stance differs. He seemed to have picked up his life and moved it to a new location. He moved the ladder, climbed down, and hugged the person holding it. David. Then a petite woman entered from the kitchen, a dish towel on her shoulder, and kissed his. Temple Karen gave him a spool of wire. He took it and held it as if it were the most normal thing in the world, being handed what you need in a room where you are desired. I could have gotten out. I could have walked up the stairs and knocked. I could have asked for a minute. I may have wrecked someone else's evening. Instead I shifted back into drive and drove around the block twice until the shaking in my hands subsided. Then I headed home. I switched off my porch light for the first time since his departure. I did not do it as a huge symbol. I did it since the individuals who need a light are not currently coming to my door. They live in a brightly lit house. Mine will be lit for someone else at another time. Perhaps not for him. That's not a curse. I'm learning how to express it without making it an indictment. On Christmas morning, the mail delivered a little padded envelope. There was no return address, but the postmark came from his city. Inside was a photograph. Real film, matte finish, black and white. It portrayed 2 pairs of hands, one larger and one smaller, with fingers linked. He had scribbled the shutter speed and f-stop in the corner, as he had done for school assignments before. On the rear, continue to grow. No name or number. I pinned it on the corkboard over my desk, next to the paper on which I scribbled, "Control is not care. They belong together. If you're looking for a tidy finale, you'll be disappointed. There is no reunion to share, no unexpected knock, and no thaw following a year-long phone call. My grief group would refer to this as acceptance. I refer to it as paying the bill. I wrote the check a year ago. It keeps clearing. I'm not a doormat. I'm not a martyr. I am a mother who made a poor decision and then decided not to make 5 more to compensate for the first. I now set boundaries, primarily for myself. I do my task. I honor my promises to children who are not mine because they show up and they require an adult who remains in the chair when things get difficult. On Wednesdays, I drive home from the church basement, roll down the window, and feel the cold on my face to remind myself that I am living. Not just a record of mistakes. People have asked me in messages why I continue to write in the first person present when the worst is over. It is not past. Regret exists in the present. So does whatever this difficult little hope is. It is not the traditional hope. That everything will return to normal. That hope was made up of control, denial, and terror. This one is quieter. It sounds like me saying, if he calls me at 80, I will answer. Or like a youngster at the youth center telling a joke about his uncle and the entire room laughing. Sometimes it sounds like my own voice saying goodnight to a house that listens back. Last night, I traveled the long way again, this time to the cemetery rather than his street. I parked outside the gate because it was late and walked along the fence to the corner of the portion where the lilies bloom. I did not bring a note. I did not need one. The grass was rigid with frost, and the stars resembled pins. A little bunch of daisies rested against the stone. A folded paper lay behind a smooth rock. I did not touch it. I don't need to touch anything that is not mine anymore. On my walk home, I passed 3 houses with lights still turned on inside. People moving behind curtains, warm light on wood floors. I briefly considered pulling into my driveway and putting on the porch light. I did not. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and turned on the lamp next to the couch. The space was bright enough to see through, enough to sit, breathe, and be. The lights in their house appeared warm. I used to think that warmth equaled control. Now I understand that it is the one thing I cannot demand. I can just get here, hold it steady, and wait without bringing anyone along who doesn't want to be here. If that's my conclusion, it's an honest one. My parents' voices cracked through the phone. Living with her is awful, but we're only here for the money. My sister laughed as if it were a joke. I'm Claire, 33 years old, and one late evening turned my life upside down. I had just finished what seemed like a typical phone call with my folks when I noticed they hadn't hung up. Their voices cracked through my phone, crisp and uncensored, as they spoke with my sister. My father's tone was chilly and almost mechanical. It's difficult to live with her, but we are simply staying for her money. Before I could process it, my sister's laughter pierced through the air. Cruel taunting, as if she had known the truth all along. My palm grabbed the phone so firmly that it ached, and my heart was pounding so hard that it felt like it was about to break free. The room whirled and my gut twisted, but I didn't weep or scream. I just sat there, paralyzed, as each syllable cut itself into me. They assumed I had gone oblivious, while in fact I was hearing their treachery in real time. Each second stretched beyond infinity. My parents, the people I trusted the most in the world, saw me not as a daughter, but as a bank account. My sister's laughter rang in my thoughts, each note taunting me, and reaffirming how little I really meant to them. I remained on my couch long after the call had finished, staring at the black screen of my phone and repeating the scene over and over. Had things always been this way? Had each pleasant phrase been tinged with calculation? I did not have the answers. All I knew was that nothing could undo what I'd just heard. These remarks had drawn a line that I could never cross again. They changed everything. Before I proceed, I'd like to hear from you. Have you ever discovered something about your family that changed the way you viewed them? Please share your story in the comments. I'd like to know how you handled the weight of betrayal and what it taught you about trust. The next morning, I poured coffee as if nothing had happened. The kitchen smelled like toast and bacon, like it always did, but every motion seemed like I was acting in an unrehearsed performance. I placed plates on the table, flipped pancakes and wiped off counters, my hands steady despite the storm in my thoughts. I needed to keep it together. I had to watch them without giving myself away. My father shuffled in and grabbed a mug without glancing at me. His gaze shifted to the newspaper, avoiding mine as if he knew I'd heard something I shouldn't. "Morning," he murmured, barely audible, before hiding his face in the sports section. I nodded, forced a smile, and watched him drink his coffee too quickly, as if he was in a hurry to get somewhere else. My mother followed her bright, phony voice as she talked. About a neighbor's new automobile. "Isn't it fancy?" she asked, laughing too loudly and fiddling with a napkin. I agreed, I said calmly, but my gut twisted. She was trying too hard, compensating for something. Then my sister Lena slouched in, absorbed to her phone and barely grunted a greeting. Her thumb sped across the screen, most likely going through social media or texting someone about her failed clothing brand. She didn't even look at the breakfast I'd prepared. I kept moving, cleaning plates, but my eyes were keen, capturing every detail. Dad's fidgeting, Mom's fake enthusiasm, and Lena's indifferent demeanor made them seem like strangers with familiar faces. I'd always assumed we were a close-knit family who shared everything. 4 years ago I purchased this large house in Portland, Oregon, so we could all live together. After my grandfather died, I inherited enough to cover the mortgage, bills, groceries, utilities, and even Mom's shopping sprees. I assumed they had moved in gratefully. Dad retired early. Mom too, and Lena, a few years older, had relied on me since her business failed. I'd paid for everything, no questions asked, thinking it was what families did. But suddenly, every recollection seemed contaminated. Had they always viewed me as a financial account? I remembered Dad asking about my finances last month, with a casual yet questioning tone. Or when Mom pressed me to treat them to a lavish supper, her smile was too big. Lena never offered to help out, always stating she was between jobs. I'd dismissed it, supposing they were just suffering. Their activities appeared to be more deliberate now. While washing a pan, I took out my phone and launched the Note app. I put, "Dad avoids eye contact. Mom is very happy. Lena does not care." I added extra times. Dad inquired about my investments. Mom is suddenly interested in my work bonuses. Lena's incessant phone scrolling. Each element seemed like a puzzle piece, producing an image I wasn't expecting to see. I wasn't sure what they were hiding, but I'd find out. Later that day, I caught Lena glancing at my laptop, which was left open on the counter. When I stepped in, she hurriedly closed it, muttering something about checking the weather. My stomach churned. Something seemed wrong. I stuck to my routine, drove to my software work, and coded during meetings, but my mind was elsewhere. I remembered giving Mom the nice coat she wanted for Christmas last year. She'd held me and called me her rock, but those words suddenly seemed hollow. Dad clapped my shoulder, happy of my success. Was it pride? Or greed? Lena had scarcely thanked me for the money I gave her for business costs. I believed I was helping, but perhaps I was just their meal ticket. By evening, I was sitting in my room, phone in hand, going through my notes. I added another. Lena checked my laptop today. I did not face them yet. I needed more than suspicion. I would observe and delve deeper. They assumed I was clueless, but I was fully awake now. This, my house, was no longer a home. It was a stage, and I had finished playing their game. By Wednesday, I was noticing things I had previously disregarded. Dad's harsh and probing queries about my finances felt different now. At breakfast, he leaned across the table, coffee mug in hand, and said, "How's that investment account doing, Claire?" His tone was casual, but his eyes darted away too quickly, as if he was looking for something. I shrugged, said everything was okay, and switched the conversation to the weather. He didn't push, but the air was thick, like if he was waiting for me to slip up. I noticed him later, flipping through stations on the living room TV, his fingers tapping nervously. It wasn't a one-time event. He asked about my work bonuses last week, and he wanted to know about my savings the month before that. I had assumed he was just being a concerned father. Now it felt like he was keeping score. Mom wasn't doing much better. She returned home that afternoon with shopping bags, luxury purses, a silk scarf, and shoes priced higher than my monthly vehicle payment. "Just a little treat," she explained, smiling cheerfully as she unpacked them on the kitchen counter. I nodded, but my thoughts raced. Those weren't minor things. I'd seen her splurge before, new dresses, fancy cooking gadgets. But this was too much even for her. She noticed me gazing and giggled, brushing it off. "You work so hard, Claire, and we deserve to enjoy it too." Her comment stung, as if she thought my money was theirs to squander. I didn't confront her, simply kept my face neutral, but internally, I was adding everything up. Lena was the absolute worst. She hadn't worked in months and said her fashion business was on hold. I discovered her splayed on the couch, phone in hand, surfing around social media rather than looking for work. "Anything new with your designs?" I inquired, keeping my voice light. She hardly looked up and muttered, "Not yet, I'm too busy." "With what?" "Posting selfies and liking others' postings." I remembered when she had begged me for a loan to launch her brand, which I had given without hesitation. Her sloth blazed at me, a clue I'd overlooked for far too long. That evening, I began digging by taking a stack of bills from a drawer in my home office. Utility bills, credit card statements, and restaurant receipts. They were all in my name and paid from my account. I hadn't considered it previously. I only wanted to keep the family comfortable. However, as I flipped through, the numbers did not add up. A $600 supper at a steakhouse I had never visited. A $2,400 charge for boutique apparel that I did not possess. A membership to a streaming service that I didn't use. My hands shook as I spread the papers on my desk. Each one is a question mark. Who was spending this? Mom's baggage appeared in my head. Dad asks questions. Lena's nonstop scrolling. I noted down the charges on my phone, next to the notes I had started on Monday. The list grew, and so did the knot in my gut. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling and attempting to make sense of it. Have they always been like this? When I accepted my IT job, I remembered family dinners, Mom's loving hugs, and Dad's happy smiles. Were real, or part of the act? Lena used to tell me about her dreams and failures. She now felt like a stranger, as if I were only a means to an end. I wanted to believe that they loved me. Not just my bank account, but the proof was building up. I didn't have proof yet, not the type I could present and demand answers for, but the signals were clear. Later that week, I saw Mom sneak a credit card statement into her purse. Her movements were rapid, as if she didn't want me to notice. "Just organizing," she replied when I raised an eyebrow. "I didn't purchase it." At dinner, Lena grumbled about her phone being too slow, implying that she needed a new one. Dad chimed in, saying I could help out because I was doing so well. I smiled nervously, said I'd think about it, then excused myself to my room. Alone, I reopened my note app and typed, "Mom hit a statement. Lena wants a new phone. Dad's pushing again." I wasn't ready to address them. Not without something concrete. That Friday I sat alone in my office repeating their remarks. Not the ones on the call. I put those out of my thoughts, but they had repeatedly encouraged me to open my wallet. I glanced at my computer screen, code blurring as recollections became clearer. Last summer, Mom insisted on a family vacation to the Smoky Mountains, claiming it would be beneficial to us. I had paid for the cabin, food and even gas, while she grinned and termed it bonding. Dad had urged me to pay for their car repairs, claiming they were short on funds. I had given out thousands of dollars, thinking I was helping. Lena was the most daring, always asking for just a little to keep her fashion fantasies alive. I supported her website, fabric orders, and marketing. None of it ever worked out. Each memory seemed like a brick, forming a barrier between the family I imagined I had and the actuality. I couldn't remain in that workplace, surrounded by lines of code that made more sense than my life. I got my jacket and headed to a downtown coffee shop where I'd planned to meet my buddy Maya. She was already there sipping a cappuccino, with her laptop open to a graphic design job. I slid into the seat, and before I could stop myself, the story came out. The call? My parents' betrayal, and Lena's nasty laugh. Maya's eyes flared and then softened. "Claire? That's awful," she replied, grabbing for my hand. "You don't deserve that." Her voice was steady and grounded me. She didn't sugarcoat it, simply listened and leaned forward. "You're smart. Don't let them play you. Get the facts. Protect yourself." I nodded, her words breaking through the fog in my thoughts. She did not try to make me feel better or pretend it was not serious. She simply provided me clarity. I left the coffee shop feeling lighter and able to breathe again. Driving home, I began to tear apart old memories that had been buried under the weight of familial allegiance. Growing up, Mom and Dad had always prioritized Lena. They paid for her art lessons, despite the fact that we were struggling financially. When I started college, they barely celebrated because they were too busy bailing out Lena from a failed modeling job. I had pushed my way through school by coding late at night while Lena partied, relying on their support. I believed I had moved on from that mindset. Buying a property in Portland, Oregon indicated we were now equals. But the more I remembered, the clearer everything got. They had always seen her as the star, and me as the safety net. It wasn't love that motivated their choices. It was all about convenience. As I pulled into the driveway, my determination hardened. I wanted answers, not just suspicions. Back in my home office, I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. I had reviewed bills previously, but this time I would go further. Every transaction, transfer, and withdrawal, my fingers flew over the keyboard as I retrieved statements from the previous 8 months. I didn't know what I'd uncover, but I knew it wouldn't be just hazy receipts. If they were utilizing me, there would be a trail. Dad's questioning regarding my assets, Mom's shopping bags, and Lena's constant excuses were not random. I created a new note on my phone and labeled it, "Proof." Over the weekend, I accessed my bank account. My home office was quiet, with the only sound coming from my laptop when I opened the financial dashboard I'd been ignoring for far too long. I'd been paying for everything: house electricity, Mom's shopping, Lena's dreams. But I'd never really looked into where the money went. Now I clicked through the transactions, my heart sinking with each one. There they were, dozens of transfers from my funds to an account I didn't recognize. Thousands of dollars were delivered in installments over months, branded consulting fees or miscellaneous. I double-checked the date. Some matched times when Lena had offered new concepts for her clothesline. Others lined up for Mom's treats. My parents had access to my secondary account to cover household expenditures. But this was different. They had not asked or said anything. I scrolled on, my fingers trembling. A $5,000 transfer was made last month, followed by another $3,000 2 weeks ago. I accessed the account information and discovered the receiver, a company registered in Lena's name. My sister's unsuccessful fashion venture, which she said was almost set to restart, was being funded with my money. I leaned back as the truth struck me like a slap. They weren't just squandering, they were funneling my inheritance to support her fanciful ambition. I felt ill, deceived, and needed to hear it from them. On Sunday morning, I discovered Mom in the kitchen, chopping veggies for lunch. I kept my voice steady and conversational. "Hey Mom. I was looking at some bank statements. I saw some big transfers. Do you know anything about them?" She hesitated, knife poised over a carrot, then grinned too fast. "Oh, just some gifts for Lena, to help her get back on her feet." Her gaze did not reach mine, instead darting to the counter. "Gifts?" I asked, coming closer. "Thousands of dollars without asking me?" She chuckled with a tense edge. "Claire, don't make a big deal. It's family, and we share, right?" Her words were light, but they felt like a dodge. A cozy lie. I nodded, seeming to let it go, but my thoughts were racing. She was hiding something, and I wasn't buying it anymore. I haven't confronted Dad or Lena yet. I had to make certain to defend what was mine. That afternoon, I traveled to a nearby bank office in Portland, Oregon. The teller, a friendly woman wearing spectacles, guided me through the process of opening a new savings account that only I could access. I sat in her office, signing documents, my phone ringing with a text message from Lena. "Can we talk about my next collection?" I ignored it, concentrating on the paperwork. Back at home, I logged in again and deposited half of my inheritance, 6 figures from my grandfather's estate, to the new account. It felt like reclaiming a part of me. I changed the passwords on my other accounts and locked my parents out of the secondary one. They'd notice quickly, but I'd be prepared. On Sunday night, I sat at my workstation, marveling at the new account balance. The transfers to Lena's business were not simply thoughtless. They were premeditated, a betrayal orchestrated behind my back. Mom's deception about the gifts proved it. I recalled all the times I had trusted them, paid over money, and believed we were a team. Now I've seen the truth. They had taken advantage of me, and Lena was complicit. My determination hardened. I wasn't simply safeguarding my money. I was defending myself. I opened my note app and added one last entry. Mom lied about the transfers. They're stealing. I didn't know how I'd confront them, but I knew I would. Soon. Sunday supper began normally, until I spoke up. The dining room smelled like roasted chicken, and plates clinked as Mom passed the mashed potatoes. Dad cut the steak with his knife steady, while Lena read through her phone, scarcely touching her food. I sat across from them, my fork laying on my plate and my heart beating. I'd been planning this all day, mentally rehearsing the words: evidence, transfers, lying. Hidden statements were stacked in my head like a deck of cards. I couldn't eat or pretend anymore. I placed down my napkin, took a deep breath, and continued. "I heard your call last week. You did not hang up, and I know what you really think of me." Silence struck the table like a hammer. Dad's knife halted in the middle of a slice. Mom's smile froze, and Lena's phone fell to her lap. "What are you talking about?" Mom inquired, her voice raised and trembling. And I fixed my gaze on hers. "You said living with me is awful. But you're staying for my money." Lena laughed as though it were a joke. Dad coughed and laid his knife down. "It was just talk, sweetheart," he explained, his tone overly mild, as if he were calming a child. "We didn't mean it." Mom swiftly nodded. "We were joking, Claire. You know we love you." Their statement seemed prepared and hollow, like lines from a lousy script. I turned to Lena and waited. She gazed at her plate before laughing sharply and dismissively. "You're blowing this out of proportion," she remarked, rolling her eyes. That laugh, that sneer, was the same as over the phone, and it made my blood boil. I pushed my chair back, stood, and joked. "Then explain the thousands you transferred to Lena's business without asking me." Mom's face turned pale, and Dad's jaw tightened. "That was for the family," Mom mumbled. "We thought you'd want to help." I cut her off. "Help? You lied, Mom. You called it a gift when I asked. I trusted you, all of you, and you've been using me." Lena grumbled and crossed her arms. "You're so controlling, Claire. Always acting like you're above us." Her comments stung, but I wasn't done. I got out my phone, launched a social media app and displayed a screenshot. "Controlling like this post." Lena described me as a stingy control freak who hoards her money. I discovered it that morning, a public post on her page slamming me to her followers. Mom gave a gasp. Dad turned away and Lena's smirk disappeared. I tossed the phone on the table, the screenshot staring back at them. I saw the transfers, the lies, the post. "I'm done being your bank." Dad tried again, this time using a stronger voice. "Claire, calm down, we're family. We don't mean harm." But I was done calming down. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't mock you behind your back. I glanced at each of them. Dad's guilty stare, Mom's shaking hands, and Lena's indignant expression. I want you out of my house, all of you, by tomorrow. Mom's fork clattered onto her dish. You can't mean that, she muttered. Lena laughed bitterly this time. Good luck living alone, Claire. You'll miss us. I did not flinch. I'll manage. Pack your things. They sat startled as I walked to my room. My heart hammered, but my steps remained strong. I'd given them everything. My home, my money, my trust, and they'd thrown it back at me. Lena's article was the final straw, proving she never saw me as a sister, only as a resource. I locked the door, sat on my bed, and opened my note app. I typed, "They're leaving. I'm free." The house was still mine, and I'd keep it that way. They may attempt to negotiate their way out, but I had had it. Monday morning, the house seemed deserted. The dining room table, where I confronted them last night, remained bare. No plates, no voices. My father, mother, and Lena had packed their belongings and left by daybreak, wheeling their luggage out the door, while I remained in my bed, avoiding goodbyes. I moved through the living room, observing the spaces. Mom's favorite throw blanket is gone. Dad's reading glasses are vanished from the coffee table. Lena's charger is no longer twisted on the couch. They'd moved to a modest rental apartment across Portland, which I'd overheard Mom say to a friend on the phone while loading the car. The silence in the home was deafening, but it also provided a peculiar sense of relief, as if I had dropped a weight I had carried for far too long. As I was making coffee, my phone buzzed. Mom texted, "Claire, we're sorry. We never meant to hurt you. Can we talk?" Dad texted, "You're overreacting, sweetheart. Let's fix this." Lena's message was shorter. "You didn't have to kick us out. Call me." Their words seemed like a pull on the part of me that still desired a family. But I could see through them now. The apologies were too rapid and professional, as if they were attempting to entice me back in. I put the phone down, leaving their messages unanswered. I'd had enough of their excuses at dinner, as well as their phony promises of joking and family sharing. I wasn't falling for it again. By lunchtime, I was sitting in a downtown lawyer's office, a tiny practice suggested by a colleague. The lawyer, a lady with sharp eyes and a notepad, listened as I described the transfers, lies, and social media post. "You need to secure your assets," she added, taking notes. "We'll draft a cease and desist letter for any further unauthorized access and review your property rights." I nodded and signed the paperwork to begin the process. My house and inheritance were mine, and I'd make sure no one touched them again. The lawyer's cool efficiency grounded me, reminding me that I was taking charge rather than simply reacting. Back home, I stood in the kitchen, staring at the area where Mom had sliced vegetables and Lena had browsed her phone. The freedom was real. I could breathe without their judgment and demands. But my heart grieved because of what we had lost. I remembered Dad teaching me how to ride a bike and Mom making my birthday cakes. Even Lena braided my hair when we were kids. Those memories felt so distant now, tainted by their treachery. I didn't cry, but the sadness hung heavy, a silent reminder of the family I'd imagined we were. I opened my laptop, logged into my new bank account, and saw the balance I had protected. It wasn't only about money. It was my future, and I was willing to fight for it. 6 months later, I moved to a new apartment. The space was smaller than my previous home in Portland, but every nook was mine, clean, peaceful, and devoid of secrets. I had sold the property, pocketed the profit, and established my life on my own terms. My days were filled with coding projects, late-night debugging sessions, and coffee runs that were free of family drama. I lived for myself, not for others' expectations. Maya stopped me one evening, bringing takeout and a mix of old music we used to listen to in college. "This place suits you, Claire," she added, smiling as we unpacked the noodles on my new couch. We smiled as we discussed work and her current design client. No heavy confessions or advice needed, it was just friendship, easy and real, the kind I'd almost forgotten. I learned about my father and mother through a common acquaintance. They were getting by in their leased abode. No more extravagant dinners or designer handbags. Dad had gotten a part-time work at a hardware shop, and Mom was selling her old jewelry online to help pay bills. Their lifestyle had disintegrated without my money to support it. I didn't feel vindicated, rather, I felt distanced, as if they were characters from a narrative I had abandoned. Lena fell harder. Her social media post describing me as domineering and stingy had backfired. Friends and fans turned against her, pointing out her entitlement. Her already fragile fashion firm failed altogether when her last backer walked out. I noticed her profile go silent. There were no more selfies or pitches, only a ghost of the image she had tried to sell. Looking back, I've learned to trust my instincts. That unpleasant sensation I'd suppressed for years was right all along. I had allowed love to blind me, believing that family meant loyalty regardless of the circumstances. However, loyalty does not imply ignoring lies or allowing individuals to drain you. Protecting my worth, money, peace and boundaries was the most difficult but ultimately rewarding decision I made. Mom said Paris was cancelled due to budget issues. Then I saw 92 photos. My parents, their other kids, but not me. I cut them off when they came back. My mother's voice sounded remorseful, perhaps even embarrassed. "Sweetie, I have some disappointing news about the anniversary trip," she told me. "Your father and I had to cancel Paris. Budget concerns arose, and we simply cannot afford it right now." I felt genuine sadness for them. 30 years of marriage are worth celebrating, and they'd been preparing this trip for nearly a year. Mom had sent me links to cafes, museums, and even the little hotel they had chosen in the Marais district. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I know you were really looking forward to it." "These things happen," she said. "Maybe next year. How are things for you?" We talked for another 20 minutes about my job, teaching high school English, my apartment, and nothing particularly significant. She seemed regular, loving as always. I am 34 years old, and I've always thought I had a close relationship with my parents. For the majority of my childhood, I was convinced that I was the only child. My childhood in suburban Connecticut was pleasant, steady, and uneventful in the best possible manner. Dad worked in insurance. Mom was a nurse who worked part-time when I began school. We held family dinners. They attended my soccer games. Normal stuff. Only there was always something slightly odd that I couldn't quite identify. Small comments here and there. Mom's expressions at times were difficult to read. How specific themes were subtly shifted. A week after that phone call, I was perusing through Facebook during my lunch break, delaying on making report card comments, to be honest. That's when Ashley Reed's post arrived in my newsfeed. Ashley was one of my childhood neighbors. We were cordial, but not close. The type of individuals who liked each other's postings but rarely communicated. Her most recent update showed her smiling in front of the Eiffel Tower, with the description, "Surprise family reunion in the City of Light." Best week ever. My finger froze on the screen. I opened the album. 92 photos loaded slowly, each one twisting something further within my chest. My mother was at a cafe, wearing a striped shirt and sunglasses and holding a croissant. My father laughed, his wine glass rising. Ashley's parents, whom I had known since childhood, and 3 more people I had never seen in family photos. A woman in her mid-30s with dark curls. A man around my age with my father's nose and chin. A younger woman, about 28, with my mother's eyes and smile. They were not going on the trip as buddies. The body language told a different story. The way my mother wrapped her arm around the curly-haired woman. How my father stood between the man and my mother. His hands on both their shoulders. The comfortable intimacy in each shot. Photo 16 shows all 6 of them in a restaurant, champagne glasses lifted. The caption stated, "To family, no matter how complicated." Photo 27 shows my mother and the curly-haired woman, heads together, laughing at something off camera. Photo 46 shows my father with his arms around both women, appearing happier than I had seen him in years. Photo 69, all of them in front of Notre Dame, posing like any family tourist photo, except, I'm not in it. I sat in the teacher's lounge, staring at my phone, until the 5th period bell rang. My hands were shaking. Students filed past me in the corridor, and I barely saw them. She'd mentioned budget difficulties. They paid for flights to Paris, lodgings, lunches, wine, and museum tickets, everything captured in Ashley's 92 images, which she had kindly uploaded and categorized. However, there was no money to include me. No one expressed a wish to incorporate me. I returned home that afternoon and opened my laptop, delving into old family photos for the first time. Birthday parties at which I was the sole child. Holidays with only the 3 of us. Even at extensive family events, I had never seen these 3 folks. The curly-haired woman resembled my mother's jawline, the man held my father's hands. The younger woman combined all of their looks, resulting in 3 people who looked considerably more like my parents than me. I have blonde hair and blue eyes. Both my parents are brunettes with brown eyes. They'd always say I looked like my grandma and showed me old images of a woman I somewhat resembled. I had never questioned it. My fingers moved almost instinctively, scanning adoption registries and genealogy websites for any information that could help me. But I stopped myself. If I had been adopted, they would have told me, right? Unless they felt humiliated. Unless I was a mistake that they were stuck with. Unless I was something they'd taken on out of obligation, while their true children, their wanted children, were elsewhere. For hours the thoughts raced through my mind. I did not sleep. I kept going back to those images, scrutinizing every grin, casual touch, and moment of joy that I hadn't been invited to participate. The following morning, I called in sick. I spent the day staring at the walls, my phone, and nothing. Friends texted. I did not respond. There was a weight crushing down on my chest, making breathing difficult. My mother called that evening. I let it go to voicemail. She left a pleasant message about coming by this weekend and possibly going to lunch as if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't just returned from Paris and those 92 images didn't exist. I erased Facebook from my phone, then reinstalled it an hour later and checked the album again. Ashley had added 98 images. One featured my mother and father on top of the Arc de Triomphe, his arm around her waist, both glowing. Another photo showed all 6 of them having a candlelit meal, with the remark, "Finally, everyone together. Worth the wait. Finally, everyone is together." The message was clear. I was not everyone. I was something distinct, someone different. Days have passed. I worked on autopilot at work, returned home to an empty apartment, and avoided all interaction with my parents. Mom called twice more, and texted to see if I was okay. I replied with quick messages. "I'm busy with work." "Talk soon," she said, appearing satisfied. 3 weeks after I saw the images, my mother texted again. This time around, the tone was different. "Sweetie, I need your assistance with something vital. Could you please call me when you get a minute?" I looked at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to dismiss it completely. A part of me wanted to call and shout. Instead, I replied, "What is wrong?" 3 dots appeared immediately. She was typing and waiting. Then her reaction came in. "It is complicated. I really do need to explain over the phone. Kindly call me. It is about your father. My father is playing the concern card, the family emergency card." I could see her strategy: get me worried, get me interested, and then ask for whatever she really wanted: money, time, or any favor she felt she deserved because I was supposed to be the beautiful daughter. The daughter who did not receive an invitation to Paris. My thumb hovered over the call button, then I opened Facebook, looked at those photographs again, and allowed the hurt turn colder, harder, and more useful. I responded, "Is this the same father that had budget concerns with Paris? The one in the 92 Facebook images Ashley shared from your family vacation? Is that the father?" The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared, and disappeared. 6 minutes passed, then a dozen. Finally, "Can we please discuss this in person?" "No, text works fine." Another prolonged delay. I could image her panic, trying to figure out how much I knew, how I found out, and what she may say. "It's not as you think. Please allow me to explain." "Explain what?" "Explain why you lied about canceling the trip. Explain who those 3 people are. Explain why your budget only covered 6 aircraft tickets, not 7. This time, the reaction was much faster. "You don't understand the whole situation." Something snapped. My fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. "You're correct. I'm not sure why my mother would look me in the eye and lie. I don't get why you take what appears to be your other children on a fantasy vacation and then tell me the money isn't there. I don't understand why I wasted 34 years believing I was your daughter when I'm plainly not. So, please clarify the circumstance." The dots emerged and disappeared multiple times. Then my phone rang. Mom called. I declined and sent another text saying, "Text only." What came back was lengthy, clearly typed, and retyped multiple times. "Those are family members I have not seen in years due to difficult circumstances. Your father and I meticulously organized this reunion so that you would not be overwhelmed by family strife that you had never experienced. We planned to tell you everything when the moment was right. This was not about excluding you. We really love you. Please believe that." I reread it 3 times. Each word was carefully chosen, and every justification was precisely made. "Who are they? You are half-siblings from before your father and I got married. It is complicated. 3 half-siblings. 3 people that resembled both my parents. 3 persons who had seemingly been kept hidden my entire life. How is this even possible? You are both their parents." A lengthier pause this time. "No, we need to talk in person. This isn't something for text. Make it work for text, or don't bother explaining at all." The response took over 25 minutes. "Your father has 2 children from his previous relationship. I had one. When we got together, their other parents had custody, and it was a mess. We were young. We made the decisions we thought were best. We attempted to maintain relationships with them after you were born. But it proved difficult. They were hurt and outraged. Eventually we lost contact. They recently reached out, hoping to reconnect. We felt Paris could be a new beginning. I sat with that explanation, attempting to make it make sense. I had no idea 3 of my half-siblings existed. Relationships that ended before I was born. A reunion trip I was not informed about. Because why? So you believed lying to me and excluding me was the greatest way to deal with a fresh start? We did not want to complicate matters. They were already worried about reconnecting. Adding another person they'd never met seemed like too much. Another human. That's what I was. Too much. A complication. I'm your daughter, not another person. Of course you are. You are my baby girl, but they have been injured for a long time, and we wanted to work on healing those connections first. We were going to notify you later and maybe arrange for everyone to meet shortly. The answer was almost reasonable, made sense, and almost justified the deception. But it didn't. Not even close. You could have told me the truth. You could have said, we are reconnecting with your half-siblings and we need to make this vacation with only them first. I am 34 years old. I would have understood. Instead, you created a falsehood about budgetary issues. I know you're correct, I apologize, it was wrong. I panicked and stated what came to mind. When did you intend on telling me? Before or after Ashley uploaded 98 images for the world to see? No reaction for a while. Then, I didn't realize she was publishing images. She was not supposed to, but she did, and now I understand. So, what did you need help with? The shift of subject seemed to catch her off guard. The dots appeared and disappeared several times before she responded. Your father needs minor surgery next month. Nothing serious, but he will need someone to transport him home and accompany him for the first day. I have a work conference that I must skip. I read the message 5 times. She wanted me to care for my father, who had spent thousands of dollars on a Paris reunion that I was not invited to. The father who had chosen to reconnect with children who had been absent from his life for decades over being truthful with the daughter he had raised. Ask one of your other children. They don't live nearby, and it's only one day. Please. I'm busy that week. You don't even know which week it is yet. It doesn't matter. Whatever week it is, I am occupied. Do not be childish about this. Your father needs you. Childish. She called me childish. I looked at the Facebook photographs again, my parents laughing in Paris, their other children smiling. A family is complete without me. He needed me as he was debating whether to be open about his secret family reunion. He needed me when he had to choose between lying and trusting me enough to disclose the truth. He didn't appear to need me back then. This is different. This concerns his health. This is about you requesting free caretaker work from the daughter you lied to. I apologized. What else do you want? What did I want? An explanation that made sense. A time machine could undo the betrayal. My parents truly valued me. I'd like you to understand why this hurts. I want you to imagine how it felt seeing those photos. To know that you all spent a week together making memories and being a family, while I bought your lie and felt sorry for you missing your anniversary trip. I do understand, but punishing your father by refusing to help with his surgery isn't the answer. I am not punishing anyone. I am simply unavailable. As if you were unwilling to be truthful with me. As if I were unavailable to get an invitation to Paris. You're being incredibly selfish. The word landed like a smack. Selfish. I was selfish for not quickly forgiving a lie and offering to care for someone who had purposefully excluded me from a key family occasion. Do you know what is selfish, Mom? Lying directly to your daughter's face. Spending thousands of dollars on a trip that you pretend you cannot afford while excluding her. You never mentioned your other 3 children. Then you call and ask for favors when you need them. That is selfish. Those relationships are complicated in ways you can't understand. Then help me comprehend. Tell me the full truth. Show me that you respect me enough to be honest. The dots appeared, disappeared, and reappeared. When can we meet for coffee? We cannot. You must let me explain properly. I don't need to do anything. You're the one who requires something from me, so explain here or don't. Another long wait. Followed by a wall of words. Fine. Your father got married before me. They had twins, Ethan and Chloe. When they split, his ex-wife relocated to California with their children. He had summer visits, but they were dirty and terrible. I had Lily from a prior relationship. Her father was not interested. When your father and I got together, we tried to unite the family, but the kids were furious and hurt. Ethan and Chloe blamed me for their parents' divorce, which occurred before I met your father. Lily felt that she was losing me. The situation was chaotic. We eventually had you, and we hoped that a baby would bring everyone together. Instead, it made matters worse. The older children felt replaced. Lily was jealous. Their other parents used everything against us. We were young and overwhelmed. We took the difficult decision to pull back and let the elder children live stable lives with their other parents, rather than in constant conflict with us. We sent money, cards and gifts, and tried to establish contact, but they eventually stopped replying. We believed we had lost them forever. Then last year, Ethan reached out. He's married now, has perspective, and wanted to recover. Chloe and Lily felt the same way. We've been rebuilding steadily. Paris was meant to be symbolic, a new beginning. We didn't tell you because we didn't want to raise your expectations if it failed, and we didn't want to burden you with decades of family history. We wanted to protect you. I read it twice. It was the most information I'd ever received about my parents' past. It addressed the mechanics, but it didn't explain why they chose to lie over trusting me with the truth. I am 34. You did not need to defend me. You are our baby. We will always wish to safeguard you. By lying? By excluding me? Making me feel like I don't matter? You're more important than anything. But it was about them, not you. It became about me the second you lied to my face. What would you like me to say? I have apologized. I have explained. I can't change what happened. I want you to know that this broke something. I want you to know you chose them over me. I'd like you to admit that your protection felt like rejection. I've never chosen them above you. I choose to approach a delicate subject cautiously. You decided to lie. Own that. Fine. I decided to lie. I was mistaken. Will you now aid your father? The arrogance of it nearly made me chuckle. An admission of fault was promptly followed by the same request she had begun with. No. He is your father. He's also someone who values reconciliation with children he hasn't seen in decades over honesty with the daughter he raised. He made his pick. I'm making mine. You'll regret this. Maybe. But right now, my main regret is that I didn't see this coming. Seeing what's coming? That I was never truly a part of your family. I was the child you had to keep. They were the kids you wanted. That's not true. Prove it. Show me one piece of evidence that I am as important to you as they are. No response. The dots appeared and faded multiple times, but no message arrived. I waited for 25 minutes. Nothing. Then 1 hour. Finally my phone called again. Dad. This time, I declined it. He called right back. I declined again. He texted me, "Your mother is very upset. Call me." I responded, "I'm sure the family you spent a week with in Paris can comfort her. Do not be like this. We love you. You have a funny way of showing it. We made a mistake. Let us make things right. How are you going to uninvent the lie? Uninvite your other children to Paris and bring me instead. Travel back in time and tell me the truth from the start? Be reasonable. I'm being sensible. You lied. I found out. Now you want a favor. The reasonable answer is no. Family helps family." These words sat on my screen, loaded with sarcasm. Family helps family. My family left me out. My relatives lied to me. The family who expected me to forgive and forget because they required something. Ask your family. You currently have 3 additional children. I'm confident one of them can assist. You're being petty. I am being honest. Something I recently discovered that this family struggles with. My father did not respond. The hush lasted for hours. Around midnight my mother texted again. Please consider what you're doing. Your father's procedure is very crucial. My emotional well-being is also crucial. Clearly less essential than your Paris reunion, but significant to me. We can sort this out. Simply help him first. Then we'll sit down and hash it out. So, help me first. Then maybe you'll respect me enough to have a proper discourse. That's not how this works. What do you want from us? The question hung there. What did I want? An apology? I'd received a half-hearted one. What's the truth? She gave me a variation of it. Understanding? It seemed inconceivable. I want you to deal with the repercussions of your decisions. I want you to understand that once shattered, trust does not heal itself. I want you to feel a fraction of how I felt when I saw those photographs. So, you want revenge. I seek accountability. By refusing to assist with a medical operation, you are establishing that I am unavailable whenever you require assistance, regardless of how you treat me. This is cruel. No. Lying in someone's face and then uploading vacation images for all to see is harsh. Calling your kid juvenile and selfish because she has been harmed is cruel. I'm simply unavailable. My father responded with another long silence. I'll ask Ashley's daughter to help. She's made previous offers. Ashley, the neighbor who had uploaded all of the images, who had accompanied them to Paris and who appeared to be more connected with my family than I was. That sounds perfect. Your mother is heartbroken. She will recover. She has 3 other children to console her. Stop throwing that in our faces. Stop claiming you had no idea what you were doing. No further messages arrived that night. The next morning, I received an email from my mother. Long, thorough, and emotional. She talked again about the delicate family relationships, her desire to protect me, and her unwavering love for me. She promised to prepare a unique trip for just the 3 of us. She swore it would never happen again. She made no apologies for calling me selfish. She did not admit that lying was wrong beyond a simple, mistakes were made comment. She didn't seem to get why trust wasn't instantaneously restored. I did not respond. Days turned into weeks. My father's surgery came and went. According to Facebook, Ashley's daughter did assist. Mom thanked her, referring to her as an angel in our time of need. She said nothing about her actual daughter, who rejected to help. I blocked them both on social media and changed my relationship status to, "It's complicated," as a private joke with myself. Friends inquired if everything was fine with my parents. I gave vague replies about growing apart, the need for space and family differences. The facts seemed too difficult to describe. How do you tell people that you found your parents had 3 more children that they had kept concealed throughout your life, that they had taken those youngsters on a fantasy vacation while lying to you about their financial problems? That when questioned, they apologized, but then quickly requested favors? It sounded absurd, even in my own thoughts. A month after the surgery, my mother delivered flowers to my school. A large expensive arrangement with a note reading, "Missing my daughter. Love, Mom." I presented them to the school secretary. 2 months later, my father arrived at my apartment. I saw him through the glass but did not answer the door. He knocked for 12 minutes before leaving an envelope under the doorstep. Inside was a handwritten letter, several pages long. He shared his thoughts on the divorce, losing custody, and the sorrow of estrangement from his elder children. He talked about how important having me was to him, how much he wanted and loved me. He explained that the Paris trip was his idea, a desperate attempt to repair decades-old wounds before it was too late. He still has not apologized for the untruth. The letter concluded with, "I hope one day you will forgive us. We are still your parents, we still love you." The door is constantly open. I tucked the letter away and tried to get on with my life, but the hurt remained fresh. Every time I saw a family together, I thought about those images. Every time someone addressed their parents, I felt a sense of betrayal. Every holiday without communication felt difficult and essential. 4 months after everything broke apart, Ethan added me as a Facebook friend. I gazed at the request for a long time. My half-brother, one of the persons in those Paris images, and one of the reasons I'd been rejected. I accepted it out of curiosity. He sent a message instantly. "Hey, I realize this is strange. Our parents told us what had transpired. I wanted to reach out directly." Against my better judgment, I replied, "Why?" "Because they botched up. Chloe, Lily and I spoke about it. We didn't realize they had lied to you. We assumed you knew about us and chose not to attend." Something loosened in my chest. "They told you I couldn't make it. They heard you were busy at work. We were truly disappointed that we wouldn't get to meet you." I sat back and processed. They had lied to everyone. I was informed about budgetary concerns. I told them I was too busy. Kept us apart while claiming it was for everyone's advantage. Have they told you anything about me before to the trip? Honestly, not much. We knew we had a younger half-sister. That's about it. They kept everything relatively separate. We assumed it was because you were not interested in connecting. I didn't know you existed until I saw the Paris photos. Are you serious? Completely. I was 34 years old and had never heard of any of you. Holy, that's really messed up. I am sorry. Not your fault. Still, for what it's worth, we'd like to get to know you if you're interested, without our parents involved. I thought about it. These were my siblings. Whether I knew about them or not, they had not sought to be kept private. They had not made the decision to exclude me, maybe. I still need time to comprehend everything. I completely understand. I'll be here when you're ready. The conversation ended, but something had changed. The fury was still present, but it found a new focus. My parents' decisions had caused harm to many people. They had kept siblings apart. They had lied to everyone involved, and they still didn't seem to realize what they had done wrong. My mother left a voicemail for me on my birthday 4 months after our vacation to Paris. She was crying, telling me how much she missed me and how she hoped I would reconsider excluding them from my life. I did not call back. Instead, I texted Ethan. I believe I'm ready to discuss more. Coffee sometime? His response was quick. Absolutely. Chloe and Lily have also been inquiring about you. We could all get together if you wish. Let's start with only you. Build up to the group setting. Deal. We met the following week at a cafe located midway between our apartments. He resembled his Facebook photos. Tall, with my father's features and my mother's coloring. It felt weird to see him in person. We talked for 4 hours about his childhood, his memories of visits with his father that ended when he was 14, the bewilderment and hurt of being driven out of his father's life, and the surprise of reconnecting and discovering he had a sister who had been kept in the dark. They tried to control everything, he informed me. Place everyone in separate boxes. I think they honestly thought it was for the best. The best for whom? I asked. For them, so they didn't have to deal with the messiness of blended family complications. It made twisted sense. My parents attempted to avoid problems by compartmentalizing their life, but in doing so, they caused more anguish than if they had simply been honest from the beginning. Do you believe they will ever realize what they did? I asked. Ethan shrugged. I do not know. Mom continues to try to rationalize it. Dad typically keeps quiet. They're wounded because you're not talking to them, but I don't think they understand why. They called me selfish. Of course they did. Taking accountability is difficult. We began meeting regularly. Then I met Chloe, who was intelligent, humorous, and possessed my mother's wit. Then came Lily, who was both quiet and warm. 3 siblings I'd never met. 3 people who knew what it was like to be controlled and manipulated by parents who thought they knew best. 6 months after Paris, Chloe sent a group message. The parents want to prepare a family supper. All of us. They are asking if we think you will come. I stared at the message. Half of me wanted to reject on principle. But another half was tired of constantly being furious. Do they want to truly apologize or simply pretend nothing happened? Chloe responded, not sure. Do you want me to ask? Yes. And tell them that pretending is not an option. She responded an hour later. Dad says he's prepared to have a difficult chat. Mom is resistant, but she swears she will try. Not good enough. Both of them must accept responsibility for their actions. Full accountability. No excuses. Ethan said, we can be there as backup if you want. The thought of confronting my parents with my siblings present felt right. They could not gaslight me if there were witnesses. You couldn't call me childish or selfish in front of an audience. Okay, I will come. However, there are certain ground rules. They apologize nicely. They explain why they chose each option. And they understand that trust must be rebuilt, not commanded. Lily responded. We'll make sure they understand before we confirm. The meal was scheduled for the next month at my parents' place, which felt like entering enemy territory. But I had spent 34 years thinking that house was my home. Perhaps it was time to recapture it, or let it go permanently. The night of the dinner, I arrived with Ethan. Having him around made me feel braver. Chloe and Lily were already inside. My mom opened the door. She seemed older and thinner than I remembered, with red eyes. Hi, sweetie, she murmured quietly. Mom. We stood awkwardly until Ethan gently led me inside. The dining room table was arranged formally. My father stood as we arrived. He appeared uncomfortable in a way I hadn't seen previously. We all sat. The tension was suffocating. Eventually my father cleared his throat. Thanks for coming. We understand it hasn't been easy. I waited and said nothing. We wanted to explain ourselves, Mom said. To help you understand. No, I interrupted. We're not going to explain things first. First and foremost, I apologize. Real ones. They exchanged glances. Chloe gave them an encouraging nod. Dad talked first. We're sorry we lied about our Paris trip. We assumed it would be easier than explaining the problem, but we were mistaken. It hurt you, and that was not our aim. It was better than nothing. Barely. And? I prompted. Mom drew a breath. And we apologize for how we handled the entire affair. For being dishonest about your siblings. For attempting to control everyone individually rather than bringing you all together. For calling you selfish when you were clearly hurt. Why did you do this? I asked. The actual cause. Not the protective parent argument. The actual truth. They were silent for a long time. Then Dad replied, because it was easier. Because coping with the complexities of blended families, including damaged feelings and competing needs, was exhausting. Because we were selfish and preferred to avoid uncomfortable conversations. There it was, the truth. We convinced ourselves it was for everyone's benefit, my mother said. But actually, it was for us. We did not want to confront the implications of our previous decisions. We did not want to confess that we had failed to maintain relationships with Ethan, Chloe, and Lily. Starting over with them seemed like a second chance. And including you, entailed admitting all the ways we had kept everyone apart. Tears were scorching my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Do you know why that hurt so much? Yes, Mom whispered. You were the daughter we raised. The one who was always present. But we treated you as if you were less important than the children we had lost. That was incorrect. That was extremely wrong. The only sound in the room was my mother crying. I love you, she stated. I love you so much, and I betrayed your confidence. I'm not sure whether I'll ever be able to remedy that, but I'd want to try. However long it takes. I looked around the table at my father, who appeared truly sorry. At Ethan, Chloe and Lily, who were all watching with encouraging looks. My mother was coming apart. It's going to take time, I admitted. A lot of time, and absolute honesty from now on. No more managing me. No more falsehoods, no matter how minor. No more treating me as if I'm too frail to handle the reality. We can do that, Dad said. We will do that. And therapy. Family therapy is for all of us. Mom nodded. Whatever you need. I'm not ready to forgive yet, I replied gently. But I'm willing to try to rebuild. That's more than we deserve, she explained. Perhaps it was. Maybe I was being overly generous. But I got weary of being furious. I was tired of the unhealed wound. Tired of spending holidays alone and receiving unreturned birthday voicemails. The supper was odd, but not bad. We basically talked about the surface. Ethan shared stories that made everyone chuckle. Chloe inquired about my job. Lily shared photos of her kitten. My parents were cautious around me, deferential in a way they hadn't been previously. It felt odd yet necessary. When I left, my mother hugged me at the door. I let her, even though it made me uneasy. Thank you for coming, she muttered. Thank you for giving us a chance. I drove home with Ethan and we were both quiet. That was intense, he finally stated. Yeah, you okay? I do not know. Maybe. For what it's worth, I believe you handled it well. You didn't let them off easily, but you also didn't entirely close the door. I wanted to, I confessed. Some of me still does. However, another part of me want to reunite with my family. Another side of my family. One in which everyone is honest. That is fair. That is actually healthy. We drove silently for a while longer. Then Ethan added, I am delighted we met. All that aside, I'm delighted I have a sister. Something warm stretched across my chest. Me too. The healing process was slow, painful and essential therapy sessions, dinners where old wounds were painstakingly probed, conversations in which my parents were forced to face their embarrassment rather than avoid it. My mother battled the most. She desired rapid forgiveness and the restoration of normalcy. However, normalcy had disappeared. We were creating something new, and she needed to accept it. My father was quieter, but more consistent. He showed up for each therapy session. He listened more than he talked. He accepted my restrictions without complaining. A year after Paris, the 8 of us traveled to Boston, a place none of us had visited before. Neutral terrain for a family attempting to figure out who they were to one another. We walked the Freedom Trail, ate seafood in the North End, and snapped shots that included everyone. On the last night, while sitting in a restaurant facing the water, my mother raised her glass. To second chances, she remarked, and to the daughter who was brave enough to demand better from us. It was not ideal. The pain had not gone away, but we were trying, honestly, haphazardly, and poorly. Ethan caught my gaze across the table and smiled. Chloe squeezed my hand. Lily laughed at something Dad said. And for the first time in a year, I felt as if I belonged to something real. Not the neatly crafted fantasy that my parents had maintained for decades. Not the segmented relationships they'd attempted to control, but something genuine. Based on truth, accountability, and the hard effort of those who decided to participate. My mother still sought to rationalize her decisions. My father still struggled to convey his emotions. They tried though. And I was discovering that sometimes just trying is enough. The thrill of watching them face the repercussions of their misdeeds had evolved into something more valuable than my initial desire for revenge. I had regained my voice. I had created boundaries. I had discovered siblings I never knew I needed. My parents had realized that love without honesty isn't true love at all. When people asked about my family now, I gave a different response than before. I have siblings. We were figuring stuff out. My parents and I had gone through a difficult time, but we were rebuilding. The truth, as chaotic as it was, felt better than the well-crafted lies I'd been fed my entire life. My mother called again 2 years after the initial phone conversation concerning budget difficulties. This time, her voice was hopeful, yet guarded. "I wanted to run something by you," she explained. "Your father and I are planning another trip, a large family one. We'd like to invite everyone, and if you're interested, you can help plan it." I thought about it. About the girl who sat in a teacher's lounge, staring at images of Paris, feeling worthless and ostracized. About the woman I'd become. Someone who recognized her worth and demanded respect. "Where were you thinking?" "We thought maybe you could choose somewhere you've always wanted to go." "Italy," I said immediately. "I've always wanted to see Italy." "So Italy it is. Will you help me plan it? On one condition." "Name it." "There are no lies about anything, even if you believe you're protecting someone, even if it is uncomfortable. Complete honesty." "I promise," she replied. And for the first time in years, I trusted her. 8 months later, the 8 of us stood in front of the Colosseum taking a family portrait. This time I was in the center, with my mother's arm over my shoulders, my father on the opposite side, and my siblings encircling us. Ethan captured the photograph using a timer. We counted down together, smiling. Later, when my mother shared it on Facebook with the message, "Family finally complete," I didn't feel the pang I expected. Instead, I felt near to peace. Ashley Reed said, "Beautiful family." I appreciated her reply since it was accurate. We were beautiful, in our shattered, rebuilt, and convoluted way. That night, over wine at a Trieste restaurant, Chloe asked me, "Do you think you've forgiven them?" I thought about the question thoroughly. I believe I have accepted what happened and decided to go on. Is this the same as forgiveness? I'm not sure, but it's enough for now. "That's fair," Lily replied. "Forgiveness is overrated anyway. Accountability works better." My mother overheard and shuddered slightly, but did not dispute. She had learned not to. "To accountability," said Ethan, raising his glass. We all clinked glasses together. And in that moment, surrounded by individuals who had been strangers 2 years prior but were now unmistakably family, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: optimism, the kind of hope that comes from working hard to improve things, rather than pretending everything is good. From expressing the truth, even when it is painful. From demanding respect and extending grace in equal measure. My phone vibrated, a text from a pal back home. "How was the trip?" I gazed around the table at my imperfect parents, who were actually trying. My siblings, who'd become my best supporters. And the crazy, wonderful family we'd all chosen to create together. I responded, "Complicated, but nice. Very good."